Good morning. Good morning. Hello, hello, everyone. All right. Good morning. We've got a doozy today, so let's get started. 1, 2, 3. Big abrupt stop for the sound. Boom. Okay. Hello and good morning. So, 2 big stories. They're going to require nuance, but we're also going to talk about how we're doing nuance wrong. And, going off of yesterday's stream about being an SW, Andrew Tate, accusations, Bonnie Blue, and all of the likes, Lauren Southern has also come out to say that Andrew Tate has assaulted her. And on top of that, we're going to talk about Laverne Cox bragging. I don't know what she was doing about dating a MAGA Republican cop. Okay, so we're going to talk about dating, bubbles, the nuance of it all, people's reactions, and what it means for our own life. Okay, we talk a lot about emotional labor here. We talk a lot about politics, but really what we're talking about is philosophy, because we do philosophy through pop culture. And I want to remind you all that sometimes we do nuance badly because we're trying to be good people and we're trying to care about people in our lives. But sometimes when we evoke nuance, we actually just use it to make excuses for people's bad behavior. So let's not do that today. There is a video I want to recommend to you from Elliot Sang called Sometimes Nuance is Bad. And we're not going to watch that video today. This isn't that stream, but please check out this video because it's really, really good. And I think covers sort of a lot of what I'm going to say today in Elliot's own way. Good morning. I see you in chat. Thank you for the compliments about my hair today. I did a little shoot this morning. Did a little shoot, Good morning. Happy Friday. I know yesterday the spoons were low. Today they're pretty low, but a big part of it is because I think much like the world, we keep doing emotional labor for the wrong people, and when it drains us, it becomes less of a community effort and more of a self-harm. Sometimes when we do emotional labor for the wrong people, it just reinforces that this isn't our joy, right? So yesterday I did this Bonnie Blue Andrew Tate stream, right? And then this account came on my video and said, "Can't even lie, I like the Jordan Peterson impression from Bonnie Blue." And I wasn't sure if it was Bonnie. I thought it was a bot account, but when I Googled Bonnie Blue, this is the YouTube channel that comes up, but it has no following. Like, nobody follows this account. So I did just make like a little PSA, and I said, whether this is her or a bot, like I blocked it because, this is what these people do. They see you talk about them, then they reach out to you, then they want to be humanized. But the dilemma is like, they're gross. Bonnie Blue's disgusting. She supports Andrew Tate. She's unethical. She says he didn't even assault those girls. They're just doing it for money. She is a gross person. And she's a gross person because she lacks a strong value system that's like related to anything, right? She expressed very nihilistic thoughts. She expressed, the world's burning, give me your money kind of thoughts. Fine. So if it's Bonnie Blue or Andrew Tate or anybody else, if people are showing up on my comment section and try to normalize their presence on my comment section, I will block you, because I don't care how famous you are or what your status is. Like, bad person is a bad person. Okay, so that was pretty easy for me. Put out a little PSA on my YouTube panel. If you guys don't watch my or look at my YouTube posts, like, look at them because I post there a lot. But yeah, I don't care if this is the real Bonnie Blue. Like, no. Okay, now, Lauren Southern came out with a book in which she writes in that book about Andrew Tate assaulting her. And I haven't read the book. And a lot of people accuse Lauren of only writing this book to make money. Even people she would, quote, call friends. And I want to share that even though Lauren Southern is generally a bad person, she's generally somebody that I think represents what's wrong with so many people in the world. And even though I'm not a fan of her, I still believe her. I believe Andrew Tate assaulted her. I believe, based off her own words, that what happened. And I have no reason to doubt her. given his reputation. Now, I know some people said, based off Lauren's reputation, how can we believe her? But at the same time, like, no matter who you are, you can still be assaulted. So I would rather side on caution and believe her. Now, this is, and I want to show you this. This is Tim Pool's reaction to this being posted. And I just want you to pay attention to the fact that this is her friend saying this about her. Okay, this is her friend saying this about her. Okay, just like keep that in mind. This is a man. And remember, Lauren does the whole, Lauren kind of falls into that like little conservative pick-me situation, right? Where she ends up supporting men who end up, you know, throwing her under the bus anytime it's convenient. And I just want you to remember that for this story because, yeah.
Lauren Southern has returned from retirement with a new book called This Is Not Real Life, for which she has released a few select chapters to give you a sneak preview of what the book may be about. And of course, that sneak preview is the accusation that Andrew Tate had raped her at a hotel in Romania. The Rolling Stones running the story, alt-right YouTuber Lauren Southern alleges in memoir that Andrew Tate sexually assaulted her. Now, let me start by saying this. Full disclosure, I consider myself friends with Lauren Southern. In fact, I consider her to be like a decently good friend, though I haven't seen her in years. She retired from the scene. We do have, she has been on the show several times. She has famously drunken whiskey, pappy as it were, from a paper cup, not realizing that is inappropriate. You can't do that. And so I've got my opinions on this, and it's tough. This one really is. I've got, knowing her personally, being friends with, having many of the same friends, having been at many of the same news locations as her, and even covered similar stories on trips with her in the past, though just a couple. I have my opinions on this accusation, as well as many of the individuals I still work with and know. And the general sentiment is, ain't no way this story is true. Ain't no way. Now, I'm not sitting here to try and defend Andrew Tate over anything he may have done. I can certainly give the man credit for his strong rhetoric, which inspires young men. The left can deny it all they want. They can tell me, they can insult me because they don't like that I said it, but it's true. Clearly, the dude has 10 million followers on X and is extremely wealthy. Something he's saying is resonating, whether you like it or not. Now, as to the claim that he had sexually assaulted Lauren Southern, even I'm skeptical of this story. I am. And it is tough, again, because I want to believe that my friend is going to write something that is honest and truthfully depicts what happened, but it's hard to believe, even with someone like Andrew Tate. So let's read the story and break down.
Okay, right? That's
what's going on now.
That's her friend. Okay, that's her friend talking about her coming forward, right? So Lauren Southern actually posted on her Substack called Long Overdue, July 15th, 2025. And this post is long, and it's long because she made it clear she doesn't want to make money off this book because of the assault. So she posted those chapters completely for free on her Substack, which I read this morning. Okay, so I read this whole thing this morning. I'm not going to make you sit through all of it, but I'm just going to highlight parts that I think are important, right? And so this is the thing that I want to talk about, right? I think it's really good that Lauren Southern posted this in a way to make it clear it's not about making money, but also no matter what she does, it will never be good enough for people because she comes from a bubble that perpetuates rape culture, that maintains it and upholds it. She used all of her free will and all of her life to uphold patriarchy, to make misogyny a part of her brand, to, you know, try to literally take power away from people who are trying to protect women and victims. So, you know, Lauren, I do believe was raped by Andrew Tate. I do believe her story. And I just want to say that this is why we continue to fight for liberation, because it, you know, anything other than liberation hurts everybody, whether you're conservative or not conservative, right? So, you know, I know a lot of people might feel like Lauren deserves this, or this is who she, you know, this is what she gets, or actually, hold on, let me read these comments really fast. On this Tim Pool video, Look at these comments. Lauren slept with Destiny and she said he had a beautiful mind. I disregard anything she says. So Lauren Southern infamously did sleep with Destiny, the streamer. Okay. Disclaimer. I was one of the people who officially confirmed that he had told me that that was true. At the time, we were in contact because we collabed together, though we were never close, even though he tries to spin the story to say that it is true, to discredit people, especially women in his sphere, right? We simply collabed together. Him and his ex-wife at the time were coming to me for advice about their relationship. They confided in me that he was cheating with Lauren Southern. They were having an affair. And they asked how to fix their marriage and what I recommended. I obviously recommended therapy. I obviously recommended like to both of them different things, right? And I was told they were working on it. I was told they were trying to figure out their marriage, right? Okay. None of that excuses the fact that she was raped. Right? It doesn't matter that she has a bad taste in friends and people around her. None of that justifies the assault. Right? And so that's the problem, is like there is a feeling of justification for people to get things or have things happen to them because of the people they're around. And that's just not true. You know? So same thing. Destiny is now an outed predator. I didn't know this at the time. Our friendship ended before it was even outed that he was, he was already an abuser, but said he was working on it. And I believe in, restorative justice and rehabilitation, all that stuff. But more than that, it came out that he was recording people without their consent and sharing the videos with people. So, it escalated to a point of, oh my gosh. And then his associations with Myron Gaines, Fresh and Fit, and now Andrew Tate, and they all have associations. So Myron is friends with Andrew, and Andrew is friends with Myron, and Myron's friends with Destiny, and Destiny is, and then Tim Pool has, this is not a good group of people. Okay. I also have, disclaimer, collabed with Lauren Southern in the past. I had come on the internet and started collabing with people in the space as sort of a hope that these people were changing. But obviously that wasn't true. Like even now, I don't think this says Lauren has changed. So when I say that Lauren was raped and I believe her, it doesn't mean that I'm eradicating or erasing from my memory any of the other bad shit she's done. So I just want to make that clear. Like, as much as I'd like to have hope that this would change Lauren and make her more liberal or a progressive, like it's not going to. Her getting diagnosed with ADHD, even though she's a neurodivergent queen, isn't going to make her more open-minded to disability and people struggling, right? Even though these people and these men consistently betray her and are willing to see her be thrown under the bus after a rape, is like not going to change her mind, right? So again, I can have empathy for her because she was assaulted and still not like want to answer a DM or reach out to her or show her support, right? Past that. So that's the thing, right? It's like, just like with Bonnie Blue writing in my DM, writing in my chat, like even if Lauren Southern did it, I'd block her. Like at the end of the day, this isn't enough for me to think these people have changed. I have a feeling Lauren is still going to push conservative policy. She's still going to back Republicans, even though she's Canadian. She's still going to, do things that I think are deeply unethical. And so at the end of the day, this isn't me supporting Lauren Southern. This is me just saying. Now, I privated a lot of the videos I've done in the past with collaborations with people because I don't want those videos up. I'm really kind, compassionate, and warm in those videos. I'm very, very much meeting people where they are. And I don't want people to rewatch those videos and think that I'm condoning those people. That's why they're taken down. But they did happen. I'm aware that some people might judge me for that, but like it is what it is, right? I'm never going to be regretful that I was compassionate to people, but maybe I could have been a little bit more critical when being compassionate, right? Okay. So long overdue. This is a post from Lauren Southern's Substack. Okay. And if you want to read the whole thing, I'll link it in the chat because I think that might be important. She says, hi all, some last notes before I log off. I've decided to release a few chapters of this book for free, specifically those involving Andrew Tate and his ongoing criminal cases. Let me address a few things before you get into said chapters. 1, the reason these chapters aren't behind a paywall is because they weren't written with the intention of profiting off this incident. They were written because they were part of my story and they're true. If you're here just to read about Tate, or think this is some kind of selling point, please don't buy the book. You won't find anything more significant about him in its pages beyond what's already here for free. 2, I can assure you that no one is more aware of the cosmic irony or the colossal train wreck of my life than I am. I've made mistakes, some mine alone, others shaped by the psychological toll of existing in a deeply toxic political space. If you're here to point those things out, you're late. I've already written the book. I've named the skeletons, told the stories, owned my mess. But let's be clear, my personal drama doesn't change the credibility of the claims I've made. I hope those who think for themselves can see past the name calling and attempts to muddy the waters that will certainly come about by influencers for hire trying to cash in or cover their asses. Number 3. I was not the first person to talk about this event publicly. Others involved chose to speak out and purvey a distorted version of these events, not just to get ahead of the narrative, but to undermine other witnesses and other legitimate cases of assault and trafficking. I spent much of my life since then mentally avoiding this experience and the drama surrounding it, but I cannot remain silent when my story is being twisted and used as a tool to discredit others. It would be unjust not to set the record straight. Okay, hold on. 4. I understand people will want evidence for some of the claims being made here, and that's completely fair. Given the deeply personal nature of the material, I've shared it privately with 2 media sources, one mainstream and left-leaning, the other independent and right-leaning. I did this knowing readers have different levels of trust in different outlets and wanted to offer a chance for clarity through whichever lens they find more credible. I'll hyperlink their pieces when I get a chance, may take a few days. I haven't done any interviews and don't plan to. If anyone else seems unusually informed, no, it's just some grand matrix conspiracy, just a few DMs and some advanced copies in the mail. And while this is my account, it's not the only one. Another book by someone who knows this story from a different angle is on the way. Ooh. 5. I've mentioned on these pages, I've mentioned on these pages that I've assisted with investigations where and when I could. Though for much of my life, I stayed on the sidelines out of fear and a desire to preserve my anonymity. Since that's no longer an issue, I want to make it clear that I'm willing to help in any way I can in a more official capacity, especially with the ongoing cases in Romania or anywhere and elsewhere if they would like to reach out to me. 6. I've seen the claims online that many of the anonymous witnesses don't exist or that they've been paid off and are part of some deep state plot, every kind of misdirection imaginable. I don't know any of these women personally, but I do know that I exist, and I know that no one paid me. But I do know that I exist, and I know that no one paid me to come forward. Okay, everything in the book in here is written in my own words and published by me. No ghostwriters, no sponsors, no shady backers, just hundreds of hours of my time and more sleepless nights than I care to count. 7. I don't know if the legal cases will be successful. What I do know is that in a world where you can buy off algorithms and politicians, the truth is hard to find, and it certainly isn't always officially verified. As we've seen recently with Epstein, information is powerful, though. The more people who understand the digital delusion we're living in, and the closer we get to breaking it. I know parts of the book I've written will be used in political bludgeons and the culture war. I know it will be chopped into clickbait, stripped of context, and turned into ammo for people who haven't even read a page. The point, of course, is that in the chaos, maybe it will find its way to a handful of people trying to get out of this digital hall of mirrors, or to the even fewer who still actually read books. 8. My ultimate hope with the publication of these chapters, and more importantly with my full book, is for healing. Even for those who have hurt me. I've learned well in my own life that some healing only comes from purifying fire. I hope my care in writing these notes and chapters will give truth the best chance to breathe in a media ecosystem that thrives off distortion and unreality. Let's see if it makes it out alive. Okay, so first, before we just jump into the actual chapters, I wonder what she means by all of that. Really, like, a lot of it's really good, but what does she mean when she says, distortion of media, the truth will get out, we know that things are covered up? Is she accounting for all of the bullshit conservative media has pushed out over the years? You know what I mean? Has she accounted for all the ways she's contributed as a journalist and as a documentarian to misinformation? Or is this a conservative woman that, yes, was raped, and yes, is still going to push for Republican policy and conservative perspective? Okay. So, like I said, this is a very long, she shared a lot from this chapter, right? So what I'm going to do, because I already pre-read it, is I'm going to try to give you an idea of like what's happening while reading some of it out to you. So it starts off saying, I'm not entirely sure how the conversation is leading up to it went. And part of me dreads just how sinister they may have been. But around February of 2018, Tommy Robinson mentioned Colin, George, and me that he had been in contact with some wealthy crypto investors in Eastern Europe who might be interested in sponsoring larger media project we could all build together. This is the Tate brothers, okay? When she says Tommy Robinson, this is Tommy Robinson. You probably remember him. He was and still is very anti-Muslim, very anti-immigrant. He was arrested for falsifying information about refugees. He, is very, very controversial. So you probably know who he is, but that's the Tommy Robinson she is referencing, right? Okay. Now, so basically, I'm going to summarize this to get to the point I want to share, right? So basically, she notices that Tommy Robinson is coked out of his mind. She's heading to Romania to meet with the Tate brothers, but she doesn't know who they are. She doesn't really know who she's meeting up with, but she trusts Tommy and she trusts the boy she's going with because they're her friends. Okay. She said, it felt like I was living on autopilot, watching a movie that I didn't understand. One that was no longer my story, but someone else's. I've heard every motivational podcast about taking extreme responsibility for your life, and maybe in a twisted way, I tried to avoid responsibility by taking my hands off the wheel entirely. If I had no role in the truck flying off the cliff, as if I had no role in the truck flying off the cliff. My people-pleasing passive self had no business being on that plane unsupervised with coked-up Tommy en route to some shady meeting in Eastern Europe. But there I was, nodding along to every unhinged plan that it made planned like it made perfect sense. And if I'm not mistaken, hold on here. Lauren Southern age. Lauren is younger than me. She's 30, and this is in 2018. So she was a baby. She was a baby. Wait, someone do the math for me because my math numbers suck. Wait, if she's 30 in 2018, what was she? She was a baby. She was literally I'm 36. That's crazy. Wait. So she was 23? Yeah, is that 23? 22? That is so young. And then all of these boys, hold on. Tommy Robinson age. So Tommy's 42 and Andrew Tate age. How old's Andrew? 38. So they are all significantly older than her. And she's just like this baby. And she's the only fucking girl on the trip. That's crazy. Okay, Chet says this happened before the Tate brothers got big. Yeah, so Lauren met Andrew Tate before he was big. Because do you remember I was posting content when did I first cover Andrew Tate? And I told you guys before he was famous, no one's going to make this man famous. And then the internet went and made this man famous. That's why you have to remember, this was 8 years ago. There was a time when Andrew wasn't Andrew. Like, that's the thing. There was a time when Andrew wasn't Andrew. So here she is, the only girl on a plane with a bunch of boys heading out to get possibly financed by crypto bros in Romania. Just only because she trusted Tommy to basically, and this is why I say be careful who you trust. Be careful who you fall in love with. You are not at fault for being attacked. First, you are not at fault, okay? You are not at fault for the way people treat you. Preventative care is important. And I want you to know, just because they're your friends doesn't mean they have your back. Just because they're your brothers doesn't mean they'll protect you. Just because he's your father doesn't mean you can trust him. Just because she's your mother doesn't mean she won't protect your predator. Just because, you know what I mean? So please judge people based off their character. Now, here's the dilemma. Tommy Robinson has a shitty character. Everybody knows that. But so does Lauren Southern. And she's had one for many, many years. Lauren has made a career being one of the most hateful, bigoted, racist, or the worst. She shot flare guns at migrant boats. She thought it was her job. She was banned from Europe, right? From the UK specifically, or she was banned. I forget where she was shooting migrant boats, but she literally saw migrants risking their life to hit land. And she got on a boat and tried to be a part of a group stopping the migrants from landing. She's not a good person, okay? Not to mention the affair she was having with Destiny. Okay, that was horrible. That's all just, it's all bad. That doesn't excuse Andrew Tate's behavior, because let me tell you, these men will feel entitled to raping women if they feel like you are also going to attack these women, right? So all the people in Tim Pool's chat being like, she slept with Destiny, I don't trust her, don't fall for it, okay? Like, don't fall for it. Don't fall for this idea. Oh, and Andrew Tate, chat says Andrew Tate was on Big Brother UK and he got kicked out. He got kicked out because allegedly he hit a woman with a belt, which she mentions in this book. She mentions in this book, like, I should have known, but we don't do our research. The same way I didn't do my research about Destiny before I collabed with him. We don't do our research. We are not at fault for the way we were victimized. You know what I mean? But we in the future can be more diligent in the way we research before collaboration. But I didn't do the work. She didn't do the work. This doesn't excuse any of these people's behavior. And that's the problem. That's the problem. Okay? Chet says, though in her defense, she did not bring the flare gun to shoot the immigrants. I really think that's not important right now. I think we need to focus. Because she basically wanted to kill them by stopping their boat from landing on land. She literally engaged in life-threatening actions to a group of migrants on a boat. Does it really matter if the flare gun was literally not there to shoot the people? The point was, she was willing to let these people sink at sea or turn their boat around and go back. Do you understand that she engaged? That's why she was banned. It's why she was kicked off Patreon. It's why she literally lost funding, because she engaged in life-threatening action. So just a reminder how fucked up that is. Okay? It's fucked up. Okay? Now here's the thing. Chet said she wanted to grift for clout and money. No, I think she believes it. And I believe she believes it based off this book. And I believe she believes it because she's a woman and she's stupid. Because conservative women are some of the dumbest fucking people I know, because they genuinely think these men care about them. And I know because I used to be one. I used to be a stupid conservative woman who genuinely believed the people around me really gave a fuck. And I think Lauren's one of them. I think she's a stupid conservative woman. Okay? And that's the thing. Chet says believes and grifts. I don't think you know what the word grift means, chatter. I really don't think you know what that means. Okay? So it doesn't matter. Okay? But I don't think you know what that means. Okay, so she said, honestly, I was just as bad as Tommy. Only I didn't need cocaine to fuel my delusions. He was probably doing drugs because he knew how insane everything was. I was worse. I actually thought it was serious. I was sitting there mentally drafting business talking points, wondering if we needed Google Doc slideshows. She says, I'm even worse. She is. There's almost something better about being a grifter. There's almost something better about being a grifter, because at least you're not a fucking idiot. You're worse. You're evil. But goddamn, you're so fucking stupid. And we are all so fucking stupid to believe this bullshit. And this is exactly why Trump gets elected. This is exactly why bad people get away with shit, because we're all so fucking stupid. And we should take that into consideration. All of us. Okay. Guys, do we have a plan here, she says. In her mind, anytime I asked about the investors, the answers were vague and broken. Something about a professional boxer or whatever. Why a boxer in Eastern Europe would want to invest in our company was beyond me, but sure, they'd paid for flights and agreed to a meeting. What's the worst that could happen? When we landed in Romania, Tommy told us the investors had sent cars. You're gonna love those blokes, he chirped, still buzzing while the rest of us were groggy from the morning flight. We grabbed our bags and headed to the airport exit. Okay, so she talks about being in Europe and how she traveled there and her confusion about the whole part of it. Tommy needing a nap when they got there. It was confusing, right? Chet said, what is a grifter? A grifter is somebody who literally sells you something they don't believe in. Like Andrew Tate sells this idea that conservative relationships are the best. Myron Gaines, says, I believe in the traditional nuclear family, but doesn't live it in their own life, right? They're selling you something like a scammer. Thank you, chat. It's like a scammer. They don't believe it. They're just in it for the money. Okay? And that's the problem. Okay? So that's the thing. Okay? Now, the title of this stream is You're Doing Nuance Wrong. We are doing nuance wrong when we think nuance is making excuses for bad behavior, or that it's an explanation that like explains away the bad behavior. Or if we are, I don't want us to double down on bad information. I want us to think about why people do what they do, right? Why are you doing what you're doing? What part of it is in relation to your values? If it's in relation to your values, you're not a grifter. You just have bad values. If what you're doing is in relation to, like, okay, remember yesterday on stream, I showed you the white people village, like the village of white people. They're not grifters, they're racists. Say it with me, girls. They're not grifters, they're white nationalists. So these white people, they're like, we want white towns with no black people and no Jews. They're not grifting, honey. They're racist. And y'all keep calling people grifters when they're actually just racists. Or you call the wrong people, like the actual grifters are grifting. Okay? But can we please remember that people are actually just racist and actually homophobic and actually bigoted and actually hateful? Because that's also happening. Okay? So Lauren is just a racist white lady from Canada who's pushing, conservative talking points, who literally thinks this is the right way to be. She's just a bad person, most likely, because we have no evidence to think she's a grifter. Versus other people, there's so much information to prove that they're grifting. Recordings. You know how many times Tucker Carlson has been caught on a hot mic? You know how many times people have been caught in emails? You know how many times they've contradicted themselves? So like, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Okay, so the steakhouse Andrew took me to. Okay, so she's talking about getting dinner and lunch and like just experiencing something that is so different than anything she's ever experienced, right? She said they confidently declare their plans to dominate the field and conquer the world. And I would simply stare into their eyes and ask, but why? For what? What does this do for your soul? I'd watch something in them crack, something I didn't understand yet. She's talking about talking to the boys, Tristan and Andrew. Really, I asked them those questions because they were the same ones I was asking myself. Some part of me hoped the successful men would have the answer, but I hadn't yet realized that part of the journey up meant taking those kinds of questions and lining them up against the wall for execution without trial. Looking back, it's clear Andrew humored a lot of my queries, especially those about whether he wanted to start a family or get married someday. If I found the right woman, of course, that's what life is all about. Family. It's how we build Western civilization. Bugatti. I added in the Bugatti. Okay. But he lingered on that, if just a little too long for it to feel sincere. Reminder that Andrew Tate has literally had allegedly now wives and many children, but nobody knows. It's a whole thing. Okay. I remember this part of the conversation well. It was the first moment things felt off. I hadn't learned to spot red flags yet, at least not the kind that wore nice clothes. And remember this, because I think this is important. Lauren Southern was going through a messy divorce and had an affair with Destiny. Okay, I don't know if it started when she was still married. I don't know if it only started after she was going through the divorce proceedings, but just a reminder that she was also a victim of Destiny's manipulation. You know what I'm saying? She wanted to be with him. Okay, there was this on again, off again. There was the crowds. There was these things. Like he was the one actively cheating on Melina, that he had gaslit Melina. I don't know how much of Lauren Southern's, I'm not sure if she cheated on her husband in a traditional sense. I'm a little confused by that. And I didn't read the 500-page of logs. I only read some of it. So I don't know. But from what I do know is that Destiny did gaslight Melina. He would go for long walks at a time, say he was just trying to get fresh air. But Melina was like, I know Destiny. He doesn't go for walks. I knew something was going on. And yeah, he was calling Lauren and having an affair. So Lauren knew she was the other woman either way, which is really fucked up. Okay? So that's really fucked up. And that's the problem, is how many women I could name you who get with these married men thinking these married men see them in ways they've never, and if they just chose me over their wife, they'd be happy. But that's not how it works. It's not how it works. These married men who are cheating with you will never love and respect you. Okay? They will never, ever love and respect you. Okay? And that's the problem. So, okay. Chad says she 100% fully cheated on her husband. He also laundered Lauren's image with his audience and did apologia for terrorism. Of course, you mean Destiny? I mean, all of those things happened. And I don't know, because I don't know the timeline. That's the only reason I'm really trying to be accurate with my work. So if you guys have receipts, you have receipts. But I can't say whether she formally cheated on her husband. But I believe the affair either happened after she was separated or going through divorce, or maybe before, right? So I don't know. Okay. Chet says, Brittany, how do you think affairs work within the dynamic of an open relationship? I've never been in one, so I don't know anything. You still have to consent to the dynamics. Just because you're in an open relationship doesn't mean you can go fuck whoever you want. Doesn't mean you can fuck children. It doesn't mean you can fuck anybody. You still have to consent. You can't just go around fucking anybody you want in an open relationship unless that's literally what you negotiate, which I recommend not negotiating that. So Destiny and Melita had a negotiation. They had consent. She asked him, are you sleeping with anybody? You're acting weird. And he would say, no, I'm not with anybody right now. He lied. He physically engaged with people sexually and came home and fucked his wife after, exposing her to STIs, lack of testing, no informed consent. Okay? He cheated. He literally had a long blown affair. He was planning to leave Melina for Lauren. He was literally he was trying to pack up bags and leave for Lauren. Right? Like, it was a full blown affair. Okay? Thank you. Okay. Okay, after the meal, we returned to the hotel to prepare for the investment meetings. I didn't know what I was expecting the meeting to look like, Lauren goes on, but it certainly wasn't what I found myself walking into. When Colin, George, and Tommy and I all loaded into sports cars, Andrew and his brother Tristan drove us through the dreary side streets of the Bucharest neighborhood, not far from our hotel. The final destination didn't look like much at first, just a generic industrial warehouse. But when the giant black gate rolled open, it revealed a scene that would have been obvious to me as a criminal operation if I had any clue how the world worked. We were greeted by a glowing blue pool surrounded by luxury cars as we stepped into the tiled entrance. Note that conservative women, okay, Chet says, remind me what year this is, 2018. From my understanding, this is 2018. So before he's famous or anything like that. Okay. Reminder that Lauren Southern is 22 years old, a conservative girly, completely sheltered by her bubble. We always talk about how conservative bubbles are not educating people. They're keeping people stupid. They're literally dumbing down their people. And then we wonder how people can be kind of innocent. But also, even if you're progressive or liberal, you can be duped. Anybody can be scammed. The smartest person on the planet can be scammed. So we have to remember that, like, there is a high probability, right? There is a very high probability that Lauren Southern genuinely couldn't tell, in the same way that it took me way too long, right, to do my research about Destiny or understand that, like, oh, he's actually just like a bad person. And I will give her a lot of empathy in that regard because, you know, you want to believe like nothing bad's going to happen to you, right? Okay. With that said, reminder that Lauren Southern's still a horrible person. She has horrible politics and she stands for horrible things. Doesn't negate the fact that she was assaulted by Andrew Tate, and I believe her. Okay. So she goes on to describe the atmosphere as basically a man cave, samurai swords and statues and silliness, and just like very Wolf of Wall Street. You know, the boys are like, you know, Tommy's rambling and everything's just kind of crazy, right? Okay. She said what was even more fascinating, though, was that Tommy's behavior had no apparent effect on the pitch being delivered from across the table. Donnie pointed to one of the screens and confidently announced that what appeared to be millions of dollars displayed in green pixels was what their coins were making in just 24 hours. They're basically selling a crypto scam. It's a whole thing. She's confused. She doesn't like it. She's not a big fan. She says, oh, they want to sell us cryptocurrency. Is this even an investment meeting at all? Despite my growing realization, I still wanted to make something out of this. I had nothing to lose at this point. So I interrupted rather awkwardly and said, the coin stuff is really interesting, but do you plan on putting an initial investment into this media company we're starting, or is this going to be entirely a crypto operation? The men at the table seemed caught off guard. Reminder, she's the only one in the room. But Donnie quickly scrambled to reassure me. Absolutely. If we can come to an agreement, we cover the initial operating costs for the news network and leak this token to it, making it mutually beneficial for everyone. Okay, so she's like out of her element. Okay? Like, it's a mess. Okay? She's just out of her element. Okay? It goes on. Okay. However, considering we were all a decade younger than Tommy, we were hardly the focus of the business discussions. By the time we were leaving to get in the cars, Colin, George, and I resigned ourselves to the reality that the whole thing was a bust. We did our best, but no one with even a fraction of their wits would give us any of No one with a fraction of their wits would give any of us access to real money, knowing it would all end up being snorted up Tommy's nose. You know, girl. Okay. It goes on. We return to our hotel, confused, embarrassed, just like, what even was that, right? Now, if you're reading this, she says, and screaming, no, Lauren, I get it. I understand now. But there's very little you could have told 22-year-old me to convince me that I didn't have a real shot at saving the day. Despite my imposter syndrome and self-doubt, flying by the seat of my pants had generally worked up until this point. Maybe I really could be the key to getting this entire media company off the ground. Imagine that. Me saving the day. It seemed like a meeting free from the distraction of a drugged out motor mouth might actually get somewhere. I clung to the fantasy that I could turn it into something meaningful, as if my ambition could somehow justify the risks. They sent a car for me. I headed back to the compound where the same group of men were waiting. No one was sitting at the desk. No papers or computers were out. They were just wandering around, conversing, while I awkwardly waited for some kind of prompt to continue our discussions. So she went in there alone, basically. She walked into a misogynist, rapist, sex trafficking dungeon and thought they're going to take me seriously. Bro. Okay. Okay. P.S. chat. You said suddenly she seems to know how the world works. I just want to remind you this woman was raped. Right? We're reading her rape story right now. So let's just be uber compassionate to the fact that, like, that's what matters here. Okay? You can criticize her ideas. We can criticize her. But just a reminder, she is leading us up to her assault. So in case you guys are just joining, okay? Which I think is very serious. Okay? Who is this person in my chat? If it were anyone else, Destiny would be demanding she take accountability for her choices and where she is. Do I have to block you? Keep an eye on that commenter. I'm not sure what you're saying. I'm just joining. Okay, well, we're reading Lauren Southern explaining how she got raped by Andrew Tate. So let's be like uber compassionate to that. Okay. Okay. Hey, Lauren, get over here. Andrew waved me to the couch. I want a picture with you. Tate barked it more like an order, but his sing-song tone kept it light, almost playful. But now I was used to it. By now, I was used to it. Ever since my sudden rise to internet fame a few years ago, people asking me for photos has become routine. I barely thought twice about it. I sat beside him and he casually wrapped his hand around my waist and tugged me in as someone snapped the shot. I wasn't used to a man grabbing me like that. Tate did it like we'd been dating for a few years or something, which, by the way, he had also done with Michaela Peterson, right? Because Michaela Peterson also had that problem where people thought she dated Andrew Tate, but she never dated him, right? So that's the thing I want you to recall is, like, Andrew Tate puts women in these positions to boost his presence. And he kind of like, and look, I don't know if Michaela Peterson ever had a bad moment with Tate. Reminder that if Lauren Southern didn't talk about this for 8 years, there's a very high probability that Michaela is one of the victims. Not that I'm saying, okay, that that's true. Okay, Chad said they did sleep together. According to Michaela, they absolutely did not. Now, were they raped? Because that's different. Sleeping together is not being raped. So I just need you to be very careful about what you're putting out into the internet if you don't know. Because I have no reason to think that Michaela slept with Andrew Tate. Because from all the interviews I've seen of her, she said nothing happened. Okay? But I wouldn't be surprised if she came out later and said he actually did try to do something and I fought him off or I was raped. Right? So just keep that in mind. This is why it's so serious, right? Okay, Chatter, I'm going to block you because you seem like so unhinged. The one who's going after Melina and Destiny. Like, you just seem so fucking weird right now. Okay. Okay. So, this is boring. Let's go somewhere more exciting. Andrew snapped while pacing. Tristan and the others agreed. Okay. Now I was naive, but I wasn't that much of an idiot. I asked again when we discussed business and where exactly they wanted to go. To the club. It's just around the block. We can take cars. It will be fun. We'll discuss business there. So basically, she's getting anxious. The story's continuing on. They're heading to the club. He's giving her favorite alcohol drink. She's saying, hey, when are the boys going to be here? Because I only feel safe if Tommy's here. He goes, your friends will be here soon. Your friends will be here soon. Okay. there's like this whole, and if you guys are just tuning in, this is a really long snippet of her book. That's why I read it already. That's why I'm not making you read it all together. So sorry, I was reading chat, I got distracted. Okay, so she's nervous. She's like, hey, where is everybody? I don't get it. Okay, so Andrew offered me a drink. He snapped his fingers. I got my vodka soda. She goes, people in the clubs kept approaching Andrew and Tristan, shaking their hands and chatting like old friends. They were clearly regulars here. I spent at least 10 minutes just trying to process my surroundings. The music blasting, the unfamiliar faces, the unspoken social cues I was clearly missing. The Tate brothers moved through it all effortlessly, naturals in this world. While they swam with ease, I felt like I was drowning. I figured I'd like to talk to Donnie, as he seemed to be the brains behind their operation, the financials at least. Honestly, I still hadn't quite figured out what the hell was going on. We exchanged some small talk about Bitcoin, but before I could get a sense of where the conversation was headed, a tray of shots was brought over. The brothers ushered us all to cheers with them. While I sipped on my vodka soda, I wasn't quite ready for another drink until Tommy and the others arrived. Where's Tommy? Where's Colin and George? I shouted past the tray, my voice barely carrying over the pounding music. The cars just arrived. They're on their way now. Andrew reassured me. Leaning in close, his head nearly pressed to mine. His voice cut through the noise with ease, steady and sure. I studied the shot glass, and despite my hesitation, seeing the rest raise them, I joined in and we all threw them back. I winced as the burn hit. I never really got used to drinking anything stronger than my vodka sodas. It's funny how an environment itself can make a behavior feel oddly natural. Surrounded by music, fireworks, and the shimmering energy of the club, it would feel weird to decline. Chet said, Brittany, did you read the whole book? No, I'm not going to read the whole book, but she did, to prove that this isn't about money, posted the whole section about Andrew Tate and said, if you want to read the book to know more about Andrew Tate, don't, because it's all here on her website. So shout out to Lauren for doing that, because I think it's hard enough to be a rape victim because no one's going to believe you. But I think it's important that she gave us access to this, because I think this is so typical. Like, as somebody who's pre-read the story, this is so typical of so many of our rapes. She is neurodivergent. She is a sheltered conservative girl. She's 22 fucking years old. She's in a foreign country. Her friends have abandoned her. She's being, she thinks she's like one of the big boys, but she's obviously not. Okay. So she's, trying to figure it out. Right. Okay. Despite only having one shot and still working on my vodka soda, I found myself feeling surprisingly intoxicated, she said. Usually only beer hits me this quickly. I paid it no mind as I was fast distracted with conversation. Maybe it was the vibe of the club, or just the fact that I was coming off as stereotypically fun, carefree, or just the fact that I was coming off as the stereotypically fun, carefree blonde. But Donnie, who'd been friendly enough as we bantered about politics and online culture, suddenly seemed to take my relaxed demeanor as a green light. Or perhaps it was the one or two edgy jokes I tossed out. Either way, his tone shifted. It was far more candid now. Yelling over the music, not yet drunk, he launched into an explanation of their entire operation, a series of pump and dump crypto schemes ranking in millions. He didn't try to hide it. It was all basically illegal and something they couldn't pull off in the US. We've got the police wrapped around our finger here, he bragged. Andrew had said almost the same thing at the compound during our initial meeting, but I brushed it off as some cheeky over-the-top bravado. Donnie went on, as an inside guy, we can do whatever we want and they can't do shit. Same when Andrew Tate said, I love living in Romania. Right? Like, I love living in Romania because you can pay the cops off. Okay, well, this all matches up with what he has said himself, right? So she's not saying anything that Andrew Tate hasn't bragged about himself, okay? He almost laughed as he said it, high on the absurdity. And even if they do come after us, we'll just shut down shop, take the money and run to another Eastern European shithole. Hell, I'm getting close to that point now. We'll cash out and disappear. At this moment, any hope that the night might shift towards a legitimate investment discussion had faded entirely. In fact, I was struggling just to keep my eyes open. We hadn't even been there long, and I hadn't drunk much, but something was wrong. My body wasn't listening to me. The world was dimming, and I couldn't stop it. I asked again about Tommy and the others, but kept getting vague answers. Just around the corner, they said. Eventually, I found myself crawling onto a couch at the back of the club, my eyelids fluttering closed. Blue lasers and neon lights danced behind them, dragging me in and out of consciousness, pulsing to the relentless hum of the heavy bass. I thought I felt a girl shake my shoulder, asking if I was okay. Honestly, I didn't care about anything except keeping my head in a comfortable spot on the white faux leather couch. Time lost all meaning. I couldn't tell if 10 minutes had passed or an hour had passed, or 10 minutes or an hour had passed. Tommy and the boys never showed up. As far as I know now, a car was never even sent for them. So just FYI, I'm going to continue reading. Trigger warning, it's going to get into the actual assault. She doesn't go into very many details, but it's still enough details that it might be triggering for some people. So just everybody get ready, okay? If you need to leave and then come back, I get it, but she's going to start going into detail. The memories after that blurred together. I remember someone carrying me to the bathroom, standing outside the stall while I threw up. The nausea was overwhelming, and I think I might have fallen asleep hugging the toilet for a while. Then Andrew was there again, lifting me up and carrying me through the dim hallway, my feet barely touching the ground, the bass of the music still shaking my body. I felt the cool night air hit my skin as the door to a sports car opened in front of me. A stupid fucking Bugatti, I'm sure. Chapter 11, Confessions. Is my chat going crazy? Hold on. Am I missing anything? What's happening? Hold on. Okay, you guys are just like talking in chat. Hey, I know this is a really triggering topic for people. So everyone take a deep breath. Okay? Okay. I know. Look, I'd love to believe we could logic our way into keeping all of us safe, but we gotta just, you okay? Be calm. Okay. Here we go. It was kind of my fault, Lauren says. I can trace every moment I had the opportunity to turn things around, right up until the point when everything went wrong. The truth is, I could have said no to that strange business meeting overseas. At least until I had more information. I could have refused to go to the club until my friends were with me. I could have turned down the drinks. With whatever little sense I had left, I could have said no to what I foolishly thought was a harmless cuddle, well, when I had no intention of going any further. But honestly, I'm not sure it would have mattered at that point. This wasn't a case of mixed signals or intoxicated blurs. I fought back. I was pleading. I just didn't realize there was a point of no return, a moment where my voice could no longer have power. I'd rather not give a detailed account, so I'll keep it simple. He carried me back to the hotel room and asked me to sleep beside him. I said yes. I was incredibly intoxicated. And some part of me convinced myself that because he was Tommy's friend, he wasn't particularly dangerous. It was a poor decision, but it happened. He kissed me. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't looking for it. But I kissed him back briefly, and then I told him I wanted to sleep. I was extraordinarily tired. He wanted to go further. I said no, very clearly, multiple times, and tried to pull his hands off of me. He put his arm around my neck and began strangling me unconscious. I tried to fight back. He repeatedly strangled me every time I regained enough consciousness to pull at his arms. I'd prefer not to share the rest. It's pretty obvious. I've mentioned it before, but I'm once again reminded of how deeply I used to believe in that naive, almost cartoonish version of life, where I was the main character. Nothing truly bad could happen, and danger didn't exist as long as you played it smart. I held on to a teenage, radical, anti-feminist idea that men weren't a real threat unless you let them be one. I'd had experiences before where I set boundaries and they were respected, where a night ended with a cuddle, maybe a kiss, and that was it. No pressure, no problem. Once or twice, I've even crashed in a male friend's hotel room and at their house after drinking without the slightest concern they'd try anything. The next morning, it was just, good morning, hope you're feeling better. That's what Andrew had said to her, at least. That's what it looks like, okay? She said, I'm not saying these were good decisions, and I'm incredibly militant now about never putting myself in that position, a position like that again. But that was my lived experience. I believed I could take all the risks I wanted and still be fine. I didn't know how to cope when that belief was shattered. When I finally faced the real consequences of taking those risks, it broke me psychologically. I cycled through different forms of denial. It's taken me years to even begin to process it clearly and to take full responsibility of my own behavior. It's easier to convince ourselves that evil completely ensnares us without any willingness on our part. But evil isn't always the obvious stuff. It's the small decisions we make that put us in compromising positions. I heard this anecdote once that the devil doesn't just leap out at anyone. He whispers, urging us to step a little closer to the fence, to come see what he's doing, to lower our defenses, have a drink, and to not think too much. We indulge. We take a step forward. And he tells us small lies, how all our friends will soon be at the fence, curious too. He reassures us that it's safe to sit on the fence between him and God, to get a better view of what he's offering without making any real decisions. But then, in the final moment, you feel claws around your arm, dragging you, screaming, while the devil smiles and tells you the fence always belonged to him. You can scream all you want about how you never wanted to go along. You can fight back in vain, be put down, but deep down, a part of you allowed yourself to get wrapped up in the lies. You drink the wine he offers. You let yourself get that close. You don't have discernment. Don't get vulnerable with the devil if you don't want to end up in hell. I mean, really. I suppose I can't entirely fault conservative media for turning Andrew Tate into a hero, though for a while I certainly did. He's not a fool, despite the persona he crafts online. There's a depth to him, a sharp social intelligence that in another life might have been a force for good. It's a true shame. You can even catch glimpses of that potential in his messaging, urging men to better themselves. But in the end, even those moments are not separate from the larger arc of his influence. They too are absorbed into the worldview where power is the only currency and dominance, not character, defines a man's worth. My frustration grew over time, though, as more and more evidence came to light about this man's operations. At least when I met him, I had no idea. My comfortable state of denial was being involuntarily shattered daily. Videos and messages surfaced of Tate discussing grooming underage girls, manipulating and lying to put women in horrific situations, scamming men out of their life savings. And as I write this, he's still under house arrest for allegedly sex trafficking and exploitation, including repeated sexual relations and acts with a 15-year-old. Frankly, you didn't need my story to see the direction it all pointed. You could just listen to what the man himself was saying. I understand the concept of radical responsibility. Well, women have freedom now. They make choices that put them in danger or compromise them. Oh, well, you asked for this, ladies. Fine. So be it. Blame the women. I'm going to read that again so I can understand the tonality better. She said, I understand the concept of radical responsibility. Well, women have freedom now. They can make choices that put them in danger and compromise them. Oh, well, you asked for this, ladies. Okay, I get it now. She said, what I don't understand is how the right-wing media in particular could make a hero of this man after all the evidence of his character has been released. Conservatives, even just 100 years ago, would have strung up people in the streets for less than what the Tate brothers do on any given weekend. Okay, first of all, oh my God. Okay, can we stop there for a second? Okay, first of all, would they? You know what I mean? So obviously, victim blaming rhetoric, obviously still pushing conservative narrative. So I gotta say it again. I believe her. I do not doubt this happened to her. I believe every word she wrote on this paper in regard to Andrew Tate assaulting her. She was raped, and I believe her. And this is a normal part of being assaulted, is you victim blame yourself. You blame yourself. Okay? So I believe her. I'm devastated for her. And I'm devastated that she's still trapped in the bubble that is going to make her keep blaming herself for the rest of her life. And I hope she gets out. Okay? I hope she gets out of this bubble. I hope she pops that bubble thinking that 100 years ago, conservative men wouldn't have loved Tate. Conservative men would have loved Tate forever. Because when push comes to shove, they voted for Trump. When push comes to shove, they were lynching black people. When push comes to shove, they were transphobic and homophobic. When push comes to shove, they were marrying 15-year-olds. This illusion that conservatives care about family values, this illusion that they aren't racist or aren't bigoted, like, it is an illusion. And she still believes it. And it makes sense. You know? It makes sense. Chet said, how could anyone not believe her? Tate is a serial rapist and sex trafficker. But you heard Tim Pool, who says, I'm a friend of her, but there's no way this happened. You know? There's no way this happened. Chet said, why would you want her to get out if she's a terrible person? Well, she's a terrible person because she's there. All of us are terrible people. until we're not. Like babies who are born conservative grow up to be horrible babies, like horrible adults. Of course, I want her to get out of it. I want all of us to get out of it. I want all of us to be introspective and be kinder. She's a terrible person because she's in it, because she believes it. If she popped the bubble, she would stop being a terrible person. Take accountability and we could all grow from it, right? And that's the thing. That's the thing that I think is so important. Now, do I think every single person has the same path of redemption? No. Some people don't get to be redeemed, but I think there's a path of redemption for someone like Lauren Southern. It's just not going to happen overnight. It's probably going to take like 10, 15 years, right? Okay. So conservatives, 100. Okay. Men then would be a part of building a strong society. Men then understood that building a strong society is protecting people, especially young women, from predators and pimps. Not true. This is conservative rhetoric. Conservative rhetoric, right, is actually believing that conservative men ever cared about protecting women. She still believes this, even in her book, even in her most recent, even this was posted 10 days ago. This girl's, she has at least 15 years, right, of deconstruction ahead of her. This is what I'm saying. You wonder why I'm all about, so when I say we're doing nuance wrong, doing nuance wrong would be like, oh, I guess everything she ever did, it doesn't matter. Nope. She can be raped and we can hold her accountable. We're holding Andrew Tate accountable for the rape and the rhetoric he spreads, but she needs both. And it's going to take her maybe her whole life to deconstruct this bubble. Maybe her whole life. So think about that. Think about that. That's crazy to me, right? Wow. Like I left the conservative bubble, y'all, just to put it into comparison. I'm 36 now. I left the Republican Party when I was like, I think I registered as an independent when I was 22. Oh, so when Lauren was this age. When this happened to Lauren, when I was her age, I left the Republican Party officially and became a liberal. And then I just became more progressive as I got older. So by the time I got to 36, now I'm like, what is gender? What is everything? Everything's a construct. She's not even close. Right? But this is the problem. So what is some preventative care that Lauren could have taken without victim blaming? Recontextualizing her values and her associations while understanding that the people around her, no matter how good they talk, their actions speak louder than words. But also their words kind of mean a lot in this bubble. Like ultimately, without victim blaming any of us, because we could always be victimized, you know, there's a thing where you want to be afraid of what people are capable of without becoming a bigot. And we're going to talk about this in relation to Laverne Cox, right? Laverne Cox 5 years ago dating a MAGA police officer who was white when he was 26 and she was 48, which don't even get me started on the age gap there because I got problems with that. Who's the predator really? And then on top of that, and don't come at me right now with your age gap relationship justification, okay? Fuck off. But more than that, why would a black trans woman date a MAGA cop? Why would she put herself in that position? When the statistical violent rates of dating cops is so high. And at the same time, we cannot victim blame. If something were to happen, if Laverne had been killed, God forbid, it wouldn't have been her fault. It would have been a reality that all of us are facing, that people in power who wear a uniform and spew MAGA are a huge threat to us. Even if you were in love for 5 years or whatever it was, okay? So again, when we have this conversation, we need to be thoughtful about who we bring into our life, but still understand we can be victimized. We can still be victimized by anybody. And so that's the problem. I think we can be, victimized by ourselves. I just hate that Lauren is still in a self-hating process. She's still processing it as self-hate. I think Laverne, all these people probably have a lot of self-hate they have to deconstruct, right? I just covered Donna Briggs and all these other people. Like, there's something we are so traumatized and dysfunctional that we will settle for not even the bare minimum, worse than the bare minimum, and think this is all we deserve. And maybe we need to change to realize we deserve better. And so maybe we need to heal and fix those toxic cycles, but you do not deserve abuse. Okay? No one deserves abuse. Chad says it's a type of self-harm. I think so too. And when I see men on the internet say like, oh, these men deserve to be taken out back and tortured by the village. Yeah, no one deserves to be tortured. You need to get it out of your head that anybody deserves to be tortured. Not one person on this planet deserves to be tortured, because who would be doing the torturing? Explain it to me. Who would have to become ugly enough to be willing to torture another human being? Because I'm not sleeping next to anybody who's willing to torture another human being. Because you want to be able to torture this man to death because he raped some kid in a village, right? Like you want to be able, you say this man raped somebody in your neighborhood, so we should go out back and torture him. And then you want to come home and kiss your wife and hold your kids with those same hands. Nah. Absolutely not. Don't touch me with those dirty ass hands. Don't touch me. Because if you're willing to do that to him, I don't know why you wouldn't be willing to do it to me. Because you're willing to do it to another person. No matter what that person did, why are you willing to do that to another person? I saw a case of a dad catching a predator, and he murdered the predator and stuffed his body in a suitcase, and people were like, justified. You're going to trust a man who's willing to kill somebody and rip them apart and stuff them in a suitcase? No way would I trust that person. That's why I say just because they go low, you can't go low. Okay? Chet says the way she dresses her assault is harmful to other women. The way she exists is harmful to other women. Literally, Lauren's whole existence is a part of the problem. And yet she's a victim of the patriarchy. She is a victim of her upbringing, the patriarchy, the conservative bubble. And this is why we have to ask ourselves, why do people repeat cycles? And that's because we're not healing. We're not doing the right therapy. We're not really understanding ourselves. We're not really getting to the bottom of it. And this is why we do philosophy through pop culture, because philosophically speaking, we are not in tune. We do not have a good set of values. We do not know right from wrong, which is why when we talk about Laverne Cox, we're going to talk about why people are done giving anybody an excuse, even though we can be nuanced, right? About the circumstance. Okay? Even though we can be nuanced about understanding how we got here, that doesn't change the fact that a 48-year-old woman chose to do what she did and expects people to still like, we're not interested in backing that. Right? Okay. Is there anything happening in chat? Let me know, guys, if there's like spammers or people that are being like absolutely, unhinged or something. I can't keep up with chat while I'm reading this. It's too, I can't do both things at the same time. Okay. But I'll notice if you guys, try to warn me. Okay. So let's see. Okay. She says, instead, we get a bunch of self-proclaimed conservative men who would drag themselves naked across broken glass for the chance to serve up softball interviews with a man who is facing nearly 3 times as many charges as Hunter Biden ever did. Okay? Each of them far more serious. Can you imagine if a Democrat had said even a fraction of what was stated in his Hustler University videos? We've got a library of damning Tate footage. So this is her lecturing the conservatives. Right? This is her lecturing the conservatives, like, why are you promoting him? Okay. She goes on to say, when it comes to conservatives' media reaction, it was willful ignorance in pursuit of fame and money. Nothing short of that. A lot of people received a lot of money and attention to pick a side and cover what they certainly knew to be morally rotten behavior, if not significant criminality. Oh, and don't forget the fear. A lot of influencers have been to that compound, and a lot of people with public profiles have been involved in that business. I didn't even realize how bad things were, how deep the rot went in the media space at this point, no matter, I had no intentions of getting into it. How embarrassing was it that I even ended up in that situation in the first place? Who was I to blame conservative media figures for lionizing Tate when I had my own failures as a self-proclaimed conservative media figure under my belt? Not to mention, I'm sure I conducted a few softball interviews of my own. In my first draft of this section, I just brushed over this entire experience, of course. The same thing I did all those years ago. It didn't happen, I told myself. Okay. She goes on to talk about, and gets a little confusing to me. She goes on to talk about like Milo Yiannopoulos and trying to discredit her. Do you remember when Milo was putting out that video saying Lauren Southern was sleeping around? And so basically they made up rumors about Lauren Southern being a slut. Said she has slept with Destiny and Tim Pool and all these people, and said she was falsely accusing all these people. And you know what I mean? She said that like there was like this whole thing that was going on. Okay, what is happening in my chat? I feel like something is happening and I'm missing it. What is going on? Guys, if you're making the environment so hostile, people have to leave. Like, hold on, pause. What's going on? I mean, if you guys need to tap out, that's fair. And if you want to block people so you don't have to see them, that's good too. But it feels like it feels like we're either disagreeing with the way we're communicating, or something is happening. Just remember this topic is like really triggering. Okay? So if you feel like you're triggering the chat, calm down and think about it. Okay? It feels like everyone just be very considerate. Like, you know, everyone be very considerate. Okay? It's a very touchy subject. If you notice your comments are particularly upsetting people, just like wait a second before commenting and think maybe I'm a bitch. Okay? Just wait a second. Please? Okay? Thank you. She said, it's now 7 years later. I don't hate Andrew. I know that may sound strange, especially in the contrast of the things I've expressed on these pages, but it's complex. He's still human. When he apologized to me, he admitted he didn't have much of a conscience, but it's still there. I hope he wrestles with it. I hope one day it wins. I hope he becomes the soul he could have been instead of the one that is consumed by his vices, whether behind bars or free. But I don't think he even realizes he's been consumed. Like so many in his position, he's likely never let himself dig that deep because there's too much pain waiting there. I believe change is possible. I absolutely believe in the redemption of Andrew Tate, but understanding why people do what they do and hoping for their greatest spiritual good doesn't mean they shouldn't be stopped. Back at you, girly. I agree. Back at you. I believe in, her redemption. I believe in her ability to be a good person. I don't believe in Andrew Tate's, but I believe in Lauren Southern's. But back at you. Okay? She said, especially when they've lost themselves so completely that they leave destruction in their wake. Back at you. I have forgiven him truly, but that doesn't mean he should be free. He should be free to keep hurting, tormenting, or scamming others. If I ever lost myself to that degree, and there have been moments where the paths felt dangerously close, I'd hope there would be people willing to stand up to me. That's us, baby. Okay? That's us. And that's the problem. Lauren is perpetuating rape culture. We all this is really hard to swallow. So everyone take a deep breath and zoom out with me. You are never at fault for your rape. Ever. Ever. Okay? Period. Full stop. As a society, the way we can help be responsible as a collective to prevent this from being normalized is to stop normalizing people who keep normalizing it, like Republicans, like Republican policy, like upholding conservative values, like voting for Trump, like backing Trump, like saying you're even a conservative. Anytime we're having these conversations, we have to remember that Lauren Southern, because she doesn't know she's a victim to the patriarchy, like she still doesn't get it, continues even in this book to uphold the same system that created and protected Andrew Tate. And that's what I want people to understand. You are not the reason you were raped. But if you really want to prevent it for other people, we have to dismantle the systems that maintain and promote rape culture. Right? And that might mean never talking to the parents who voted for MAGA. Because honestly, like, I know it's easier said than done, right? It's so hard to look at the people you love so much and say, like, you voted for somebody who raped somebody, who's obviously in the Epstein files. I mean, it's been outed. It's been reported that he's in there. To what capacity he's in there, you know, but he, like, it is so hard for people to realize they've been duped. Okay? It's so hard to realize we've been duped because we want to think we're smart. And we are smart. We're just not infallible. We're just not without flaws. And so the dilemma, once again, is like the patriarchy makes men feel entitled to our bodies because they literally are taught they're smarter than us. They're better than us. They know more than us. They know what's good for us. Andrew Tate said in that interview with Bonnie Blue yesterday, he knows better for his daughter than she knows for herself. I hope Lauren Southern pops this bubble and realizes like the answers are not in this bubble, girly. You know, and that includes religion. It includes religion in these patriarchal systems that put women in positions of subservience. They're not helping us. Because those are the first people to victim blame. Those are the first people to victim blame. Chat says we're also punished for getting things wrong to show weakness when we make mistakes. And that's where I think Lauren is stuck in right now, right? Where she made a mistake and she's doing this thing where she's like wants to blame herself. You know what I mean? But she's blaming herself for her rape and not for her contribution to upholding patriarchy. Hold yourself responsible, Lauren, for upholding patriarchy, which encourages rape culture. Do not hold yourself accountable for your own rape. You're not responsible for it. You know? You're not responsible for it. That's the problem. You know? All right. Additional note upon completion of this manuscript. I've decided to leave in this section of the book. At first, I wrote it just to process my own emotions, convincing myself no one would ever read it. For a while, I thought about replacing parts with dramatized, anonymized scenes to avoid drawing too much attention. But after a lot of reflection, I've realized I'm done with the cowardice. If I'm gonna do an honest book, I'll do it right. And this is a big part of my story. Why now, though? It's a very valid question. I know how people think. Oh, you're just deciding to tell the story in your book to make sales? What about legal cases? Can't believe you didn't help earlier. I should start by debunking some misconception here. First, I will be releasing all the chapters relevant to Tate for free. It's not about money, and frankly, I'd rather not give people any excuse to project their own twisted motivations onto me. Now, not that I'm too worried about the opinions of anyone who thinks human trafficking and scamming men out of their life savings is some kind of noble vocation. Remember, he admitted to that, right? Second, I've always believed these matters should be handled by the legal system whenever possible, rather than turned into public spectacle. As I mentioned earlier, I had no desire to put my face on any public claims at first. Instead, I oscillated between denial and my own harsh judgments of women who came forward with similar accusations. Why didn't you go to the police? That would have been the right thing to do. Why didn't you go to the hospital? That would have been the right thing to do. Even though, note, some people did. Some victims of Andrew Tate did go straight to the hospital. Okay. And eventually did contact police. Ironically, Lauren says, my extreme judgment of others pushed me to make some of the right choices early on. I embraced denial, but deep down, I knew what really happened. I reluctantly reached out to the UK authorities the next day, feeling it was the right thing to do, only to be met with indifference. Yes. And this is why we don't repeat it. Okay? Or this is why we don't report it. Sorry, not repeat it. Report it. I can't tell you how many people I know who have gone straight to the police only to be told, like, you're not going to have a case here. You know? People who have gone to the police with their parents, with their loved ones, with their, being told, like, there's nothing you can do, right? They told me an investigation could only be pursued in Romania, a country where I had been explicitly warned about the police corruption. I went deeper into a disassociative state as a result, feeling certain there would never be a resolution. Attempts to involve Canadian authorities later led to similar dead ends. While I'm sure plenty would like to claim the investigation into Tate as a deep state operation, if anything, the state didn't help at all. They honestly didn't seem to give a shit. I wasn't looking to start a legal battle. I was just looking for any interest at all and helping me make sense of what was going on in Tate's compound in a way that would keep me anonymous. Years passed before Tate's antics made it onto the radar of Western authorities, due to repeated claims from other women that had nothing to do with me. Eventually, a larger U.S. investigation reached out for my assistance, and I provided what information I could off the record. I did everything possible while trying to maintain my anonymity, but for the most part, I buried it until I began writing this. Being a witness in any official capacity would have required revealing my identity, something I wanted to avoid at all costs. Still, over the years, public exposure started to feel inevitable. Someone I once naively trusted shared parts of my story with journalists without my consent. That disclosure resulted in others posting distorted versions of events online or in published works for political activism purposes, clearly with no real concern about the potential crimes happening or whether I wanted my story public or not. At one point, even Tommy worried about his own connection to the situation. One of the parts of the story I think I skipped is when she had been assaulted by Andrew Tate. The next day, she was in the car with the boys, like her friends, Tommy and so. And they kind of like, she said, "You'll never believe what the fuck happened." And they were like, "Wait, really?" And they were like, she was like, "Yeah." And then it kind of got like silent and awkward and nothing really happened. But she told the boys like the day after. You know what I mean? I think people really struggle around rape. From my own lived experience, people really struggle with it. Like, it's just too hard for people to process. They don't get it. You know, they think they get it. Like, people think they get it. But I'm telling you right now, we don't get it. We don't get it. I saw a TikTok today that said, "I can't believe it's a modern day concept to be anti-pedophilia," because conservatives love to say they're anti-pedophiles, but absolutely think marrying a 15-year-old could make sense. And I know that's not the actual definition of pedophilia, thank you. But you know what we're trying to say. Conservatives love to say they're anti-child marriage. They love to say they care about kids. They love to say they're afraid about gay people perverting children, but they're more than happy to see adults date children, right? Because they think, oh, you're a high schooler, you know better. You're 15, you should know better. So I love that a 15-year-old should know better, but like a man in his 30s doesn't have to know better. Cool. Awesome. Love that. Vibes. Just kidding. Super sarcastic. Okay. She goes on to say, "In my silence of the past 7 years, if my silence over the past 7 years hasn't been made clear enough, the last thing I wanted was attention for this. I have an entire archive of replies to those reporters telling them to fuck off and leave me alone. Regardless, it's always felt like only a matter of time." So she's fucked if she does. She's fucked if she talks about it, right? She's fucked if she doesn't talk about it. No matter what you do as a victim, you're always going to be doubted. You're always going to be disregarded. You're always going to be undermined. Chat says, "Thank you for clarifying sarcasm." My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay. And chat says, "Well, wow, this is a tough stream." Girls, I was out of spoons before I started. I was out of spoons before I started. Okay. Because I was pre-reading this ahead of time. It's exhausting. I think it's so hard. And I think this goes to what I said yesterday. If you watch enough of Andrew Tate, there will be moments where you're like, oh, I kind of like him. If you watch enough of Bonnie Blue, you'll eventually be like, oh, she's kind of funny. If you watch enough of Trump, you're like, damn, he's so charismatic though. If you watch enough of a bad person, you'll eventually see the good parts of them. And the good parts will blind you. And that's how they get you. That's how they get you. And that's what I'm saying is so hard. I am empathetic to how hard that is, which is going to be talked about with Laverne Cox, because the way people are absolutely saying, well, she's just a woman who's desperate. It's hard enough finding love as a trans woman. If it's a cop, at least it's somebody. Police focus. Lock in. Okay? Everybody lock in. And this is why I say all of us are human. Yes. And that is just the explanation, not the excuse. We are all so flawed. We are all so fucked up. But not all of us are as fucked up as some of these people. And I need us all to acknowledge that. Yes, because Destiny used to do that. Destiny would say, hey, we're all fucked up. Like, you can't be better than me. Destiny even said, I remember him saying on stream, fuck, does nobody have anything on Britney? I don't know anything about her. I don't know anything about her. Does nobody have anything on her? No. Stupid. No, stupid. Because I don't do fucked up shit like that. I have flaws. I talk about my flaws. I'm not a fucked up person like you are. Of course, nobody has anything on me, stupid. I even have a pact with my community. If I ever cheat, you better unsubscribe. That's the whole point, right? Like, if I fuck up so badly, y'all better not follow me anymore. Like, if you hear something about me and you find the receipts and it's true, then don't follow me anymore. But there are no receipts. Okay? Ugh. Chad says, I think dating someone whose political ideology makes you feel like the exception, for sure. I mean, so much of who we choose to love, so much of who we choose to associate with is about being the exception. Lauren even said it in this video, in this book, right? She even said it in this book. She said, you know, I thought I was the main character. I thought nothing bad would happen to me. I think that's most people. That's why people don't believe women, because they think like, okay, rape happens to other people. It doesn't happen to people I know. Okay. They really think rape is some mythical thing that happens somewhere else in the world, right? Rape is not something that happens to people I know. And that's why when I reviewed Mormon Wives, I was so impressed with Connor, I think that's his name, coming out to talk about his childhood assault, because it is one of those things where they think men don't get raped. They think children, if they are, like, even children, even when the Catholic priests those kids were coming out, people in my Catholic bubbles were saying, what if these kids lied? You're asking, what if a child lied? In my own family units, like extended family, there's some predators. When the kids came out as adults, people asked the kids, like, do you think you instigated it? They were 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 being asked if they instigated it. I mean, they were in their 30s and 40s when you know what I mean? But I mean, you know, like, I've seen it in my own real life. And it is really hard to contend with. It is really hard to recognize it. It's really hard to recognize, like, it's like that meme. Have you ever seen that meme where it's like when you're old enough to be at the big kids table and you hear the family lore and you realize, like, oh God, we're the baddies? You know what I mean? We're the baddies. Like, our families, sometimes the reason we don't talk about our families is because we realize, like, oh shit, like, are we the baddies, bro? Do we have some fucked up people in our families? Kinda. You know? Okay. But with that said, right? We are humans on a planet where animals evolved over millions of years. I do think we get better, and I think it starts with us. And then it starts with us bonding with the right people in our community. And it starts by giving people a path to redemption and understanding, in my opinion, people like Andrew Tate, I think their path to redemption is solitude, but not like solitude in the police way, because police are disgusting. Okay? It's like in a facility to live out the rest of your life, doing something to give back to the community, but not to be tortured. Like, I hate police systems. I hate cops and the systems they exist in, not people who are cops, but the systems in which cops exist in. The corruption, the bullshit, highly male dominated. The corruption is wild. We just watched a police video yesterday of a black man being pulled over and, quote, resisting arrest, which should never be illegal, being punched and beaten. And there were black cops there. And they used black cops to do the press conference as if that is going to make us, oh, look, a black cop is saying it's okay to beat up a black person, so I guess it's okay. No, it's not okay. And using a black police officer to try to make us calm is so fucked up. It's why they bring out women to try to, that's why women are used to perpetuate bullshit. Black people are used to perpetuate white supremacy. Like, Southern is doing the dirty work. These black cops are doing the dirty work. They are tokenizing your minority status to say, look, even a woman agrees with us. What's that guy? What's the white comedian who made the lopsided tits joke about the girl who does girls? Oh, I hate him. What's his name? He goes, everyone called me a misogynist for that joke, but a woman wrote it. Just because a woman wrote it doesn't mean it's less misogynistic. I forget his name. White boy, comedian, I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, it doesn't make it less misogynistic, y'all. But that's what they think. That's what I used to think. I'm guilty of it. When I came out of conservatism, I was a conservative, and even when I was a liberal, I used to be like, well, I'm a woman and I think it's funny. I'm a woman and I think it's funny. Stupid. Okay, good. Now you're just a stupid woman. Like, you're not helpful. You're just pretty. Hello? And that was me. I did that. Okay? So we got to give people an understanding that, like, just because you're a minority doesn't mean you're not a problem. Okay? Rami B, welcome to memberships. Happy to have you here. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay. It's really important, chat, that you're sitting here when you say Lauren Southern is a racist grifter. I don't think she's a grifter, but it doesn't make her less of a rape victim. Remember, when you go around saying women are grifters, men will use that as a reason to say she wasn't raped. You can hold her accountable, absolutely, but this story is about her being raped by Andrew fucking Tate. So let's focus. Okay? Let's focus, girls. Because that's what they're going to use. And that's why we say, no, there's no such thing as a perfect victim. And we can hold people accountable separate from their rape. So very focus, okay? Okay, now, okay, the story goes on. She's telling this big story about Milo and the whole situation. And there's really like not much to it that makes sense to me, I think, outside of the context of the whole book. But I want to read some parts of it because I think it's important. She says she's basically, they're stealing her story and making it impossible for her to tell her own truth. And that's why she's telling her truth. So this is how she ends it. She said, I blamed everyone but myself. The situation was messed up. There's no doubt about that. But I wasn't setting myself up for success by refusing to see how my own choices had led me there. I had sold my soul. Enjoying the praise of people who don't truly know you is a dangerous game because they don't know you. They can be made to believe anything about you. And it's not their job to dig deeper to find out who you really are. They don't owe me that. Maybe what they owe them, maybe what they owe themselves, though, is to stop caring so much about the drama or of the famous, because in the end, that obsession is as much of a perversion of the mind as my own obsession with their thoughts. At the end of the day, I got the fame train and rode it until it was going speeds that threatened to kill me before I jumped off. And then I was angry at the train for taking me so far. I may not have known exactly what I was getting into, but no one forced me onto that train. I wasn't a helpless passenger. I wanted the ride. I thrived on the speed, the attention, and the sense of purpose it gave me. I say I jumped off, but really the train went off the rails. It stopped being fun. I like to focus on the crash, on the victimhood, but the part that's the hardest to admit, I was angry that the train had stopped serving me. Okay, that's like a pretty significant self-awareness that I think is a good first start. But she's not there yet. I think she still has about 5 to 10 to 15 years of deconstruction ahead of her. You know, like she is saying, I did ride this train. I got on this train. The rape is the rape, but she's saying her she is complicit, right? She's saying that she is a participant in the environment she put herself into, but that has nothing to do with her rape. Okay. I need you to hear me say this. She's holding herself accountable for the environment she was in, but she's not responsible for her rape. And she's trying to say that I was a part of this shitty community. And now let's see how long it takes her to hopefully get out of it, if at all. And that's the problem. I don't know. I don't know if she'll ever get out of it. I don't know if she'll ever be a liberal or a progressive. I don't know if she'll ever deconstruct. But I hope so. And this is a devastating story, right? It is a devastating story, but I'm happy to see some level of self-awareness. And then my hope is that it continues, but you know. All right, I'm going to link the full thing in the chat so you guys can take your time and read it in full. And I want to use that conversation to kind of have the Laverne Cox conversation, because again, this goes back to putting ourselves in situations that are dangerous, but understanding that we're never at fault for the danger, but talking about preventative care based off values. So remember, you could put yourself in a position, because like, I'll give you an example moving into the Laverne Cox story. I've never dated a conservative. I've never dated a Republican. I don't even think I'm 100% sure I've never even had sex with a Republican. And if I have, I didn't know they were a Republican, because I've only ever been sexually active in liberal-ish spaces, right? So I've never been with a Republican. I certainly never dated anybody who was MAGA, right? I've never done those things, okay? So this conversation around Laverne dating a MAGA Republican and people saying like, yeah, a lot of like women do that. Not me. And it's certainly not 48-year-old me. Laverne did this at 48 years old. 48. This is after Orange is the New Black. This is after her fame. This is after not me. Okay. Why would her values allow her to engage with this person? That's the question. Okay. And I'm not saying, you know, maybe there would be a situation where you were horny and you were like riding the wave of it and you guys had sex and then you found out. But I have dated really shitty liberal men. I have dated really shitty liberal men when I was a liberal moving into progressivism. And the more progressive I got, the more my partners followed, right? So I obviously am open-minded to people making mistakes and decisions, but Laverne dated somebody who was 26 when she was 48. And to me, that sounds like you're taking advantage of somebody. Why are 50-year-olds dating people in their mid-20s? Can we please make it make sense? How are you 50 years old and you're like, you know what I want to fuck? Somebody basically just out of college. Somebody a few years into their career. Like, why are you doing that and then romanticizing it? It's not cute. I'm not amused. And this is why I say our elders need to be held accountable even more than anybody else. I'm sick of us excusing our elders as like, oh, it was a different time. It was a different era. It was 5 years ago. She did this 5 years ago in the height of the pandemic. Now, I needed to screen record this TikTok from her account and put it into my YouTube channel. That's why it says volume for Laverne at the top there. You can see it because her volume is so low in this video, but it's a publicity. She's telling this story to coax you into coming to her tour show to hear the full story. So I'm going to let you hear it and then we're going to talk about it.
My ex-boyfriend, when we met 5 years ago at the height of the pandemic, he was 26, I was 48. He is blonde hair, blue-eyed, MAGA Republican voter who is a New York City police officer. We were madly in love. I did not develop any of these politics. I still have my own. Yeah, my ex-boyfriend was 22 years younger than me. Hot MAGA Republican New York City police officer. Yeah. To hear more about that, come to my show at City Winery in New York City.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize this clip didn't have it, but there's another clip where she talks about him being like blonde hair and blue eyes and stuff. I thought that was the whole clip, but maybe I saw a different version somehow. I don't know, but I hope it's not a Mandela effect where I think I saw something I didn't, but everybody was talking about it. So we all saw the same clip. So many people had comments about this. And then Laverne was doing a live show. Yeah, she did mention the blonde hair and blue eyes. Oh, did she mention it in this video? She said it in the beginning. Okay, I thought I couldn't hear it. I thought I missed it. Okay, thank you, chat. Thank you. So this one here is her reaction about it on I think Instagram live or a TikTok live. I'm not sure. So this is her. It says, hold on, let me make it better for you. It says, Laverne Cox and the MAGA ex-boyfriend, are you willing to do the labor that may be required to date somebody with different views and values?
What the children are saying, and the children are gagging that...
Oh, the volume is really low on this video, so everybody listen intently.
What the children are saying, and the children are gagging that my ex-boyfriend, the MAGA Republican, Trump voting cop, people are gagging in the comments. And I don't know. I didn't really think about what the reaction would be. I just was like telling the truth about it, teasing the show. It is a big part of the show that I'm doing at City Winery a week from today. That relationship, what the relationship was like, how we attempted to navigate our differences politically. But for the record, when we met on Tinder, when we matched on Tinder, I didn't know what he did for a living. I didn't know his politics. We were just chatting. He actually, told me he did something else. I'll explain. If you come to the show, I'll explain in the show. And I was in love. One of the comments was like, just say it was about the D. That was lovely too. It was lovely. But I'm a grown woman. I'm like, okay, I'm a grown woman. I've lived. I am not going to date someone for like 4 years because of the D or because of something superficial about how he looks. He has a beautiful soul and has really beautiful qualities, and I was in love. And as I found out his job and his politics, particularly in 2020, if you recall, we were having conversations really for the first time in this country about white supremacy and trying to have conversations with people across difference. And anyone who knows me, like for years, I've always encouraged people to have conversations with people across difference with love and empathy. That is a value of mine that I strongly believe in, and that is something I attempted to do in this relationship, and that's a lot of what the show is about, in addition to like, how did I get here? And then things get very complicated. It's not, I don't want to give away what happened in our relationship. You should come to the show and find out if you can. But I do want to say that reading the comments, and I get it, it feels like a lot of people in the comment section are dehumanizing people who have different political beliefs than they do. And I see that all over social media. I see that all over the media. If someone has different political beliefs, they're somehow not human anymore. And that is something that dehumanizing anyone is not consistent with my values. Fascism is not consistent with my values. I am an anti-fascist. I never adopted any of my ex's politics. I always challenged him and with love and empathy and tried to listen to his perspectives, often corrected him with facts. And I wanted to see if it was possible to have a relationship with someone with different political beliefs in theory. But like, it was just, I fell in love.
Okay, so she fell in love with a fascist. So she said she doesn't agree with fascism, but she's willing to fuck it, is what I heard. Chad said Lana Del Rey dated a cop for years and there wasn't a big uproar. I'm going to be so fucking real with you guys, because I've been hearing this. I've been hearing from a lot of people that have said, like, everyone's just mad at Laverne, but so many people have done this. I don't know what bubbles you're in, but my bubbles, why do you think we stopped listening to Lana? Like, why do you think we all fell off Lana? What are you talking about? We were so mad. Like, we fell off Lana. I never liked Taylor. Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's something so weird about bubbles. And that's why I always try to say, like, just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it wasn't happening. We were mad. We were upset. We did not continue fandoms. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, people don't understand. So with Laverne, like, she doesn't get a pass. She doesn't get a pass because you guys didn't hear other people criticize white people because it was happening. You guys just probably didn't see it because you probably don't care about those white people. Why would you? But like, there is something to be said about the settling aspect of this as well, where people are like, well, trans women, especially trans Black women, have a hard time dating. So sometimes the best people to date them are conservatives. Y'all, please be so for real. And yeah, we stopped listening to Lana when she went for Black women in that Instagram post, right? So fuck Lana, fuck all of them, okay? But like, this idea, right, is so weird to me, right? Chet says I'm not standing either of them, but I'm saying mainstream leftists are going after her way harder. Well, do you think maybe she was 50 dating a 26-year-old, which is a double whammy of fucked upness? Do you think it's probably because it wasn't just about the cop thing? There's also an age gap element to which she's in the predatory position. What, women can't be predators now? What are we focused on here, people? She, as a progressive, if she is a progressive, should know even more so why it's abhorrent to date a 26-year-old at 50. Like, 48, whatever, 50, come on. Like, are we maybe going after her more because of that? Like, is that, because that's the bigger issue for me in a lot of ways. Like, yes, it was horrible that she dated this cop and fell in love with him, but also, why are you messing with somebody in their 20s? Like, that's the reason I'm actually really fucking pissed, is I'm sick of these people. I'm sick of grown-ups fucking around with young people. Okay? Chet said if the person was 30, would you care? I have a rule that after 30, it's none of my business. And even then I get to side eye you. But after 30, it's none of my business. But 30 proper. And even then I'm going to side eye you. Because your willingness to even engage with people that are fucked up is a whole other thing. Okay? Chat said, why? Lived experience and wisdom. Lived experience and wisdom. Listen, as somebody who's been with older people, as somebody who's been friends with older people who date younger people, let me tell you the amount of fucked up and dysfunction that has to exist for it to occur. I want to see people in healthy relationships. And there is a very low chance you are in a healthy fucking relationship, in an age gap relationship in which you are in your mid-20s with somebody in their 50s. Okay? That's what I want. I want healthy relationships for people. So excuse me if I'm not surprised that it wasn't healthy. Okay? Right? Okay, now listen to this guy. Let me make sure the volume isn't going to kill us.
It is wild to me how quickly this community has turned on Laverne Cox. Like, completely disregarded all the advocacy work, all the change she's made over, when you really think about it, who she's chosen to love. Like, at what point are we going to look ourselves in the mirror and call out that we are perpetuating a cycle of bullying that we've avoided our whole lives? Because when you really think about it, you are telling somebody who they can and cannot love based off your morals and values. And what's the difference? Sorry.
We're cooked. That's the most brain dead TikTok I've ever seen in my life. Please be so for real. Like, do you know what I'm saying? We are so fucked. Like, I saw this TikTok and this is so what I strongly believe, okay? If you're married to a transphobe, you're not an ally. I don't want to see you at the Pride Parade while your husband's at home bitching and moaning about the gays. Okay, how about that? Okay, the self-hatred is it. We're done. The allies being like, I'm an ally. How are you an ally when you married a bigot? Okay, and yes, and I hate to say this, myself included, we're going to have to stop talking to a lot of people in our life if we really want to kick all the bigots out. But that's why I don't make new friends with bigots. Anytime I make a new friend and I start to get a vibe, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Because, like, you know, it's one thing to grow up with people and want to see them change because, you know, but it's another thing to start new friendships. That's why Laverne is getting so much heat, because at 48, she started a new relationship with somebody. This wasn't something that happened in her 20s. This wasn't something that happened in her teens. Like, what are we talking about? Yeah, who you date kind of fucking matters. Okay, now people are mad at Cat Black, right? There's a disconnect happening on the internet where some people are mad at Cat Black for having the conversation about why women date conservative men, why trans women date conservative men. But then there's a part of it that I think Cat's just adding the nuance into the conversation, but Cat also has dated conservative men versus I have never. Like, I grew up conservative, but I didn't have like a real adult relationship until I was in my 20s. And then I didn't even have sex till I was in my 20s. So I had boys and girls I held hands with when I was younger and they weren't conservative. And then even though, you know, we were liberal at most, right? And then when I started dating for real, I was already in a liberal space. So, you know what I mean? But Kat has a really interesting story about this that I think we should listen to. It's a bit long, but it's worth it.
The only reason I'm talking about this is because I think it's important to understand the mentality behind this if we're going to criticize.
Okay, so this is the part where I say nuance has to be done correctly. Nuance isn't to excuse the bad behavior. So in other words, hold Laverne accountable, but explain how it happens, which is what I think Kat's doing. If I'm mistaken, let me know. But from my understanding, right, she's just explaining how it happens. But then that doesn't mean we have to keep standing Laverne. So when that guy said, I can't believe this community turned on Laverne so fast, this community is holding Laverne to a standard that I think we should hold her to. No fucking dating 20-year-old people when you're in your 50s, fuck off. And what are you doing dating a MAGA person? Why are you openly dating a racist? Okay? And that's the problem. And I think that's a perfectly decent standard. Okay.
It, right? If we're going to spend a bunch of time criticizing people for, you know, how they've dated and who they've dated and ask why they've dated them, I think it's really important to understand the why.
Also, I just want to point out that like just because they're progressive or black or minority in Hollywood doesn't mean they're still not in circles that are like known to be very abusive and toxic and fuckery. And like, so a part of me is like, how many times do our favorites have to be outed? Look at Hugh Grant's wife just coming out saying it was a betrayal that caused the divorce, meaning he cheated most likely. It's like, yeah, I don't know why you keep staining these people, these celebrities, like they're going to be good people. And then when they out themselves, you're like, like, yeah. But also that's why I'm proud of people for holding Laverne accountable or anybody else that comes out, because there has to be a road to redemption. But why is a 48-year-old woman that she's 52 now, by the way, she's telling this story now. And again, I understand we do make excuses for our elders, which is why I want to stop. I want to stop making excuses. I know I'm saying something that is so controversial right now in all of our communities, but I think we need to hold our grandmas more accountable. And I know y'all pretended to do that 20 years ago, but you're not actually doing it, because you got to love your grandma through it, but make her understand like you are wrong. And I have been shielding you from how wrong you've been because I wanted to protect you, because you're an old lady who makes me food and I love you. I want to protect the old people in my life so badly. But funny enough, they will not do the same when it comes to things like bigotry. And I need you to pay attention to why that matters.
Right? I think what a lot of people aren't understanding, and I guess this is probably a point that I didn't really make very well, conservative men, there's a difference between how they court you and what it ends up being, right? There's a huge difference, right? My experience with conservative men, keeping in mind that I used to live in a conservative community, so the only people I dated were conservative men for a really long time. I only recently in the past...
See, why does she say it like that? Is she saying she was a conservative, so she dated conservative men? Or is she saying she dated men because she was in a conservative town? Like, why wouldn't you just not date? But see, I don't value relationships like that. Like, I don't value romantic relationships enough to date people I'm not actually into. But is she saying because I was around conservatives, that's all I could date? This is settling culture.
7 years of my life started dating men who had more overtly left-leaning politics. But conservative men, usually you get to know them and then they reveal that they're very conservative, and
That's
they
true.
typically don't share.
Even with friends, I noticed in Seattle, if somebody was more conservative leaning, they would tell you like it was a secret. And I'm like, what's this? You know, Discord says you are a huge outlier, Brittany, when it comes to relationship values. No. Well, I don't think that's true. I think I just learn faster than other people, but look how slow I am. You guys see how fucked up stupid I am sometimes. Because I don't think I'm that much of an outlier when it comes to values and dating. I dated really shitty people in my 20s. They just weren't conservatives. But they were liberals, which is basically like a conservative. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they still were misogynists. They still fell for bullshit. They were still white enough to complain like a white man does. Do you know what I mean? Like, am I really an outlier when it comes to dating? Or am I just like able to say like, okay, we're done. Like, we're not doing this anymore. Discourse said at least to mainstream dating culture. Yeah, but what is mainstream dating culture right now? What does that even look like? Not talking, not asking questions? Then why are progressives doing that? Chet says you're just more efficient at applying the lessons. Well, maybe, but I don't want to think of myself as like special. You know what I mean? Many people are insecure and want relationships and will do it regardless. Okay, well, and maybe that way I am unique, I suppose. Yeah, maybe in that way I'm not. Maybe, fine. Oh.
Their politics, right? Now, someone like me, at this point in my life, I've learned to ask men about their politics, right? One of the very first things I do on a date is ask men about their politics. I'm also very openly political. So it weeds out a lot of men who are not politically aligned with me. But a lot of conservative men, they really view certain women as exceptions. And I would actually say that for a lot of conservative men, most women that they interact with positively, they're viewing as the exception, not the rule, right? I think what makes it hard is a lot of you guys are imagining that within these relationships, trans women are experiencing hate, antagonism, and they're being abused, basically, right? Like, the reason why you have such a hard time understanding why this works is that you're imagining that a trans woman who's in a relationship with a MAGA man is going to experience endless amounts of harm, endless amounts of attacks, right? But the reality is, a lot of times these men are making an exception for these trans women, and they're saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, maybe I do think that, kids shouldn't have access to hormones, right? But they're going to still be very attracted to you if you're very feminine, especially if you're someone who started their hormones as a kid, right? It's a dissonance that they have, right? It's a dissonance they have largely because most of these men, they don't really understand what they're supporting. When I say that, what I mean is, and see, I'm only saying this nuance because it's, I think, important to just understand what people are experiencing. Ultimately, I think dating a conservative man means you're dating someone who is voting against your rights, who doesn't actually believe in supporting you, right? But
Okay, I think this is why I'm a little confused that the internet is anti-Cat Black right now, because like she is acknowledging all the things. So I don't know why I keep seeing TikToks of people, and I don't think I saved them. Maybe we'll go looking for them, of people saying like, oh, like, didn't Cat date conservative men? Isn't Cat the problem? Cat has internalized issues. Cat's dating a white man, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, yeah, look, I don't know if you guys are, this is so not my area. And I understand like Black communities have their right to speak on things. I'm just telling you what I've observed because my TikTok is like Black content creators, because that's what my feed is feeding me, because I like the bubble. Okay, girls. Barack Obama recently came out and was talking about how he had a gay professor, and the gay professor taught him a lot about life. And then a bunch of Black people got on the internet and was like, he wants men on the DL to teach our kids, and they think our kids should be. And then another Black community that I follow, mostly progressive Black community, was like, hey, you should be nice to gay people, and Black people are too bigoted. And Kat, it just makes the argument a lot of the time that like Black communities are really transphobic. So white people are the most available people to date because white people have had more time to deconstruct because, they weren't enslaved. Because the privilege that you're given in life to even have the time to think comes from your ability to like, no, you don't have to worry about where you're living, or, you have the tools. And that's why when we talk about philosophy throughout pop culture, even to sit around and think to yourself, like, what is the meaning of my life is like a privilege. When you're in survival mode and you are drowning in anxiety and all of the other, that's just like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have time to think about things. So, in cats and BDSM, even in BDSM, it's like full of white people because white people have the privilege to be kinky without the consequences that people of color don't normally have. So I think that's the dilemma, is like, I don't think Kat is running away from something. I'm sure Kat would have ended up with a Black man had she met him and fallen in love with him. But we meet the people we meet at the time we meet them. We fall in love with who we fall in love with in the moment. And the goal is, even if you're in love with them, are they the right person? And I always say high compatibility is what I want you to have, meaning your values are on the same page. So it doesn't matter how in love I am with this person. If our values are not the same, the love is not going to make 70 years, right? So we have to think about that stuff. We have to think about how, just because you're in love, that doesn't. So when people say, well, Laverne was in love, she was in love. Okay, so haven't we all been in love with the wrong people? What does that matter? What does being in love have to do with anything? But you think it has everything to do with it, because I did too in my 20s. I used to think, but I'm in love, so that must mean something. I hate to break it to you. Love without values only just means that. Right? But I think there's a pathway out of it. And I think a lot of us aren't always raised in these perfectly progressive homes. So we have to acknowledge that the world is mostly conservative, being raised by conservatives, dating conservatives. I'm lucky. I don't know how I didn't end up dating conservatives, right? Like, that's really strange. Isn't that kind of strange? I really grew up my whole life in a conservative bubble, but like, I knew, you know why? I remember when I was a young girl, I was homeschooled, and we had this Catholic co-op, and a Catholic boy said, hey, do you like me? And I said, oh, you're kind of like my never gonna happen. He's like, what does that mean? I was like 14 years old. And I said, I'm gonna grow up to be a heathen. And he said, what? I said, you're gonna stay Catholic. You're gonna stay conservative. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, I'm not. He goes, how do you know that? I was like, I'm telling you right now, because I knew I was gay. I knew I was queer. So I told him, like, yeah, one day I'm gonna grow up and I'm never gonna come back here. And I never did. I grew up and I peaced out. And to this day, because this person is still connected to us, because we still know the families, like, yeah, he married a nice Catholic girl. They have a nice Catholic marriage and a nice, cute life and a he's a very nice person. He's very wonderful. That was never going to be my life, you know? Oh, yeah, Chad says the pattern recognition served you well. You know, maybe it was that autistic, I was like, I know this is not my life. But I didn't really know it, guys. I still struggled so much with that conservative upbringing. I still deconstruct it on the daily, you know? But yeah, I knew I was never going to be here. I knew I was going to be a naked heathen running through the streets. You know what I'm saying? And look at me now. So it is interesting when people, especially trans people, grow up in a bubble and go like, oh, I'm going to date a conservative because they're available. Could not be me.
But your experience with a conservative man directly is going to be that he barely even thinks about that stuff. He barely even talks about that stuff. In fact, he will probably occasionally make comments about how you're the exception, right? A lot of these men will make comments.
Everybody loves to be the exception.
About how, you know, typically they wouldn't do X, Y, Z, Z, Y, X, but you're the exception, right? That is the thing that they do almost more than anything. You're the exception.
Yeah, which is the bullshitness of it, right? That's the gross part. Chad says, from the internet critic's perspective, Kat's saying the conservative men they date think they are different, non-stereotypical, so it harms the majority of Black and trans women. Yeah, but she's saying that's a bad thing, right? Isn't she saying that's a bad thing? That is true. They tokenize you, which is gross. They're dehumanizing you. They're objectifying you. Is she saying that's a good thing? I thought she was explaining that it's like something you have to understand is happening. That they're like, that's why I don't like trans chasers, or I don't like chasers. I don't like anybody that fetishizes me, my body, my gender, right? Like, I don't want anybody engaging with me because I am XYZ. I once had a guy say, oh, I love girls with BPD. Skirt, skirt. Absolutely not. Oh, I love autistic girls. No.
Right? You are the person who, changed everything essentially for them. Like, a lot of the men that I've dated, they have a complex about dating me, and they compare me to other trans women, right?
Okay, here we go. Let's see if she calls it out.
A lot of the conservative men that I've dated, it was very clear that they were dating me because I was a certain degree of feminine. They were dating me because they saw me as better than some of the other trans girls that they had experienced with, you know? And when you're a trans woman who's insecure with your gender, and you're having a guy basically celebrate you knowing that he doesn't typically treat other women like that, it's a trap a lot of women fall for.
It is.
Right?
It is.
Oh.
It's the same thing I've seen friends fall for, where they cheat with a married man thinking he'll pick them and they're special and they're the exception. He's like, I've never cheated before. You're the first person I've cheated with. You're so wonderful. You're so perfect for me. I married the wrong person. You were the person I should have married. And then he gets a divorce from his wife and he still doesn't pick you. Huh? He literally gets a divorce from his wife and he still doesn't pick you. Oof. Oof.
Well, he's not usually into trans women, but he's really into me because of how pretty I am, right? That's that's the kind of bullshit that gets into your brain. That's why some trans women end up falling for it because they're like, "Oh my god, here's this guy who is treating me really well." Right?
Okay, so she
He
just said guy treating me really well in quotation marks. So I feel like she's calling it out. She's saying it's bad. It's, that's what I'm hearing.
you know, celebrating my beauty. He's very attracted to me, you know, for some women. And I think this, again, the point I make about like how people are getting this confused because they don't understand that trans women are women. Women in general, under a patriarchal society that often encourages women to be misogynist.
Hold on, chat. I think you're misunderstanding the commenter. The commenter is saying, or maybe I'm misunderstanding the commenter. Didn't the commenter say, is there a way to have a preference of body that is not a fetishizing? Yes. And you said like women getting the ick if their boyfriends have nail polish, or men with issues with women being taller. You said, hold on, you wrote, is femininity, masculinity not a fundamental basis of most people's sexuality? I think it is. So I think there are layers to I'm going to take you in totally good faith, chatter. Okay. There are levels to introspection you can have deconstructing your own relationship to attraction, and nothing is set in stone. And there's a belief that everything is set in stone. But most of the ways we seek out or engage in attraction are not set in stone. They're actually very fluid. Now, for some people in this 8 billion person planet, some people have an experience of feeling or that it is certainly set in stone, but it's not necessarily true, right? So it's something to be deconstructed, and you have to engage in it, and you have to see, okay, am I actually attracted to this thing because I'm attracted to this thing? And then is it worth being attracted to this thing at the expense of a connection with a person? Like if I'm in love with somebody and they change their hair color, is that the reason I fall out of love with them? If I'm in a relationship with somebody and we stop having sex, but we're still engaging in intimacy and I love them, does that matter? If I'm with somebody and they transition, is that enough for us to break up? Like, is this the love of my life, like the consciousness that I'm in love with? Or is this just another person who's fulfilling a checklist of body parts I like? And if they change any of the body parts, do I abandon them? This is a relationship about deconstruction, because I think we're raised in a society where we're also told what we should find attractive, right? We're told what we should find pretty. We date people based off of what our friends think is pretty. There are people who won't date certain people they're, quote, in love with or like because their friends won't think they're pretty, right? All of this should be deconstructed. So again, what we think is set in stone might be, but probably isn't as set in stone as you think.
Are sometimes going to listen to men speak ill of women and be like, wow. Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, look at me. I'm so different. I'm so much better than. And you can hear that mentality, or at least the trappings of that mentality, in Laverne Cox's video, right? There's a dissonance that you have to have around being in a relationship with a conservative man who votes for Trump. Because here's the thing, right?
See, she's saying it's a dissonance. You have to have a lack of relationship with self. You have to be able to deny it in order to maintain it, right? Chat says, I got to be honest, I believe most ways of attraction are set in stone, like how people are born with their sexuality, hence why things like gay people fundamentally are gay. I think that is very common. I think we're going to realize in the future that's not true. You know what I mean? Right? Chad says, do people have an obligation to deconstruct genuinely how this works without questioning people's identities? I don't know how this works without questioning people's identities. Well, you don't have an obligation to do anything. We're animals evolved on a planet. Like, no, there is no God. There is no superpower. Nobody's making you do anything. If you would like to have a relationship as deep as possible with yourself and your place in the universe, like your place on Earth, then I recommend you do it, because it's always great knowing more things about yourself, right? I think a lot of people settle until it's like, eating at a restaurant and ordering one thing on the menu because you're too afraid to try anything else. But then when you do try something else, you realize, oh my God, I've been missing out all these years. Like, instead of like missing out, why don't you just try everything on the menu? right? Chet says, okay, this is about self-actualization, not like moral or ethical issues. Right. We're not right. Like, it's a combination of the things that have an overlap, but first and foremost, it's about self-actualization. It's about introspection, extrospection. Then once we know ourselves, we play a role in the world, and that brings in ethics and morals. What does it mean to be myself? What does it mean to exist in the world? If race is a construct, what does it mean to be a race? If gender is a construct, what does it mean to have a gender? What does it mean to engage in these constructs like societal expectations, behaviors? So we have to, they're two different things, but they overlap. And I think people are lacking the self-investment. We're lacking a relationship with self, you know? Chet said, this makes more sense. Thank you. Absolutely. Good questions.
And I want to make this kind of clear. I didn't make this super clear. A lot of the conservative men that I dated were not Trumpers, right? Because I got out of the conservative community I lived in 2016.
Okay, noted.
Right? So, I've never dated a Trumper. I've definitely had positive interactions with men who turned out to be Trumpers, right? And I can say that from my experience with those men, really what it was is they saw me as the exception, right? The last Trump guy that I had an interaction like this with, there was a biker dude that I always know who is, he's a total sweetheart, total gentleman, right? He was, of the men that I'd interacted with at the club, one of the sweeter, nicer, more respectful, more chivalrous men, right? When he met me, I guess he perceived me a certain way. And then as we got closer and my politics started coming up, he started being like, oh, what the fuck, right? Because he in his mind had seen me as an exception, right? And I get this a lot from many angles, right? I've often been the exception as the black girl, the exception as the trans girl, an exception as a woman. You know, I've been the only woman in an all-male friend group quite a bit in my life, unfortunately. You know?
People were criticizing Kat because she's also straight. Like, Laverne is straight. People were criticizing like straight trans women as still heterosexual women. So that was playing a role in some of the criticism I was seeing, right? But I will say that I can see in this context why people could be upset with how kind she's being with her descriptions of these men. But I will say this too. I know a lot of Trumpers who are the nicest people in the world. They are the most bigoted people though, because niceness has nothing to do with anything. We take for granted that niceness means goodness. Just because you're nice doesn't mean you're good. Like, I don't know why we think nice means good, except that's the branding we've been given our whole lives. So like, yeah, a nice Trumper, I meet those all the time. What does that matter? You know?
I think a lot of conservative men, they look for that. They look for that pick-me thing. And that's why you'll get liberal women who end up in relationships with these men, and also, you know, trans women who end up in relationships with men. Because sometimes you can have that mentality. It's very easy for every woman in the society to have that mentality. And I think that for conservative men, that's what they look for. So, yeah. And yeah, I want to reiterate that these men are not mistreating these women, right? Like, these men are typically doing what they would like to do in relationships with you, you know? They're doing all that stuff, right? Because dating a conservative man, it's like dating a guy who needs to be entertained in a curated way all the time, right? So as long as you are doing what he wants, engaging with him the way that he wants, you're fine.
I disagree with this. I disagree with the way Kat said that. I think this is a mistreatment. So when she says they're not mistreating these women, I consider that a form of like almost like coercion. Like, it is mistreatment. So I think that's could be, I could see people being angry with that, because that I disagree with that framing, that these conservative men aren't being kind with, there's a, what's it called, guys? She's saying it's strings attached, right? And if there are strings attached, then it's not safe. Is kind of how I kind of think of that.
Right? You're fine. And what I've learned about conservative men is over time, they will resent the fact that you did that, right?
Yes, 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 yes. They will resent the fact that you were catering to their expectations of you. I've had that happen with people, especially men, where even as a friend, they're like, I can't believe you've been catering to these things. And I was like, well, you get pissy and like you lash out and like you're violent if we don't play these games with you because you won't hold yourself accountable. They're like, I can't believe you're doing this. Right. So I think that's like the part of it is why like I try not to date these people. Right. It's one thing because I have a conservative family dealing with conservative men who are not deconstructing gender. But it's another thing to choose to date them.
They will resent the fact that you didn't have a backbone, basically, and they'll take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Right? It seems nice at first, but then like down the line, their politics eventually do catch up.
Okay, then there's this video.
All right, so I just
Chat said there's no excuse.
quickly wanted to pop on here and respond to this because this is an issue I get into in every single time I talk about this, or anything like this. This always ends up being the thing. So I want to make it clear, and I hope it doesn't sound condescending to say this, but I always think that when I present what I'm saying, this is always very clear, but I guess a lot of people don't get it, right? This is not about making excuses. It's about explaining why it happens, right? A lot of you guys don't realize that what you end up doing is talking about trans women in like a hypothetical way, right? You talk about trans women as though, you have certain theories about them. And if you put these theories out on paper, right? You can make a calculation that is the truth, right?
I hear Arabic music in the background. I think her partner's Palestinian, right? I hear music in the background. Somebody in chat earlier, I forgot who said it, said something like, if you're dating a conservative, who was it? Can you repeat your question? If you're dating a conservative, does it mean you haven't deconstructed? Something like that? Just says, does Kat think people are mad because conservative male mistreatment in relationships? People are upset about their politics? No, I think... Okay, so Kat is explaining why it happens, and people are saying there's not an excuse, and she's saying it's not about an excuse, it's about explaining why. So the problem with the nuance is that you have to be able to say, I'm explaining the behavior, but it's not an excuse. But because Kat isn't being hypercritical with her 10-minute videos, it sounds like she's not very upset. Now, I think I did see another TikTok from Kat where she said, like, people are acting like Laverne isn't just a person. But I think that's why people are upset, because I think I did see that. Can anyone confirm? Did you see that from Kat? And if that's the problem, Laverne is just a person and people suck. So fuck her. With peace and love. Zero tolerance. Read the room, Laverne. The administration is destroying people's lives and you're sitting here talking about how in love you were with a MAGA cop. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, read the room. The world is burning. Read the fucking room. Palestinians are being murdered. Read the room. And she can't read the room at 50? Read the room. Okay? Chad says, do you think if you settle for a conservative that makes you inherently immoral? I think bigotry is inherently immoral. And I think based off my own values, I think bigotry is unethical. I think I saw a TikToker say, that one you could have kept to yourself, Laverne. That one you could have kept to yourself. I was like, Laverne, the way you couldn't drag that out of me in the era, like a year of 2025. Like, what are you doing? Focus, please. Like, it just like read the room. You know what I mean? Oh, it's so funny. But you know what makes it even more insidious? Is she did it to sell tickets. How capitalistic of her. What's so insidious is she did it in order to make fucking money. Yeah, and then the irony is people are like, oh, now we're definitely not going to your show. It's like, yeah, now I'm definitely not going to the show. Why did you think this was good branding? You know?
bothersome is that most of you don't recognize that even if you feel overexposed to transgender women, you aren't really privy to most of our perspectives, right?
And I agree with this. Even because, like, okay, but this is the thing about being trans that's confusing. Because I don't know, like, being a trans binary person, I think is a very different experience than being any other kind of trans or other person. But it's not more or worse or different or specific. Like, it's all transness, right? But I think there's something to be said about the difficulty of having nuance with this, because real people are trying to kill people. Like, we have to remember, it's safe for our communities to have these conversations, but since we're having them online and in public space, really bad people are also watching them. Like, really bigoted, violent people are still consuming our words and using our words to attack our communities. So we have to be very open. So Laverne isn't Laverne, separate from being trans or black or anything else, is just an adult person who dated a MAGA Republican. I'm not interested, and romanticized it. I'm over it. I told you I'm over these girl circles. I'm over these girl bubbles that are so interested in making room for MAGA romance. I'm over it. Peace and love, girl. Talk to your therapist about it. I'm tired. I'm tired. It's 2025. Why are we even joking around with this? Okay? I'm over it. And that's the thing. It's like, I want people to know that, you know, there is obviously the intersectionality of this, which is so important. So if you're like, as a black trans woman, I expected better from you, you're missing the point that Kat is trying to make. Trans black girls who feel generally rejected from their own communities might end up venturing into communities that you wouldn't think they would, but maybe this community treats them better. And I think that I'm going to say this, and I'm talking out of turn, but I've heard from some black creators saying, isn't it interesting that white cops are treating black women better than black men? Don't shoot me. Don't shoot the messenger. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, are MAGA white cops treating black women better than black men? That's all I'm here. That's for my understanding what's happening. Okay. And all I'm saying is, you know, that's how it feels. Because if, you know what, that's why transphobia hurts everybody. Because transphobia is also racism. Everyone knows that black women and masculine appearing women get pegged as, quote, trans and get literally ostracized from their own community bathrooms because everyone is transphobic. Transphobia is racism. We got to stop being transphobic. We got to stop being racist. We got to stop doing these things. But how do you do it unless you deconstruct? How do you do it unless you realize it's all connected? It's all connected, and this is how bigotry works. Do you know what's happening with Candace Owens right now? In the French guy's wife, the French minister, what is it, prime minister? What do they call the French guy? Macron, whatever. She has made it on her career that she's a trans person. And because of that, now they're suing her. Okay? And I'm like, bye, Candace. Bye, Candace. Bridget Macron, thank you. Who, by the way, in my opinion, is incredibly inappropriate for marrying her husband after knowing him as a teenager. Fuck that shit. But also, why are you obsessed? All these people that are have a conspiracy around Michelle Obama being a Michael, y'all are crazy. Leave Michelle Obama alone. But you can't. And who cares if she was trans? That's the transphobia of it all. It wouldn't be a conspiracy. It wouldn't be a problem if you guys weren't transphobic. Who cares? She's not. But even if she was, who cares? But it only matters because people are transphobic. And that's the bullshit of it. If we weren't transphobic, it wouldn't even matter. And also, once you deconstruct transness as outside the binary, then at some point it doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the problem people have, or at least where I am in my deconstruction journey. There isn't even, like, for me, it isn't even about the binary trans experience, because I think they're in the minority. I think most people are bisexual, pansexual, and queer, and trans. I think people are having a fluid, possible relationship with their life, but we don't want to say it because we think it's only true in the binary. By every definition, I am technically trans, but I don't say I'm trans because I'm not a binary trans person. I'm not having a binary experience. But in a safe space, I would be comfortable being called trans. But in other spaces, it's the wrong word because like they're only saying I'm trans if I transitioned. So when people accuse me of being trans, you know, they're like, is Brittany a trans? Is Brittany a man? They're asking if I was assigned male at birth and I had a surgery to appear assigned female at birth. That's the transphobia, right? So that's the problem is like when people accuse you of being, everyone is in the binary trans bubble. And so this is a binary trans conversation, you know? And that's the thing. But the dilemma is that like, what does it even mean to be trans or not trans? What does it mean to be cis? Like, what does it even mean? Who cares? But see, it only matters because we're transphobic. Ugh.
Right? You're especially not privy to the perspectives of trans women who don't identify as queer, who don't necessarily want to be seen or known. You also don't recognize that for people like Laverne Cox, right? She wanted to be an actress. She's also a transgender woman, right? She wanted to be successful in this society, doing something that she was passionate about, doing something that she loves, and naturally that facilitated the positioning of her as a trailblazer. Laverne Cox.
Hold on, Chet says are non-binaries just not acknowledged as existing? I mean, they are in this bubble, but the world struggles with it, even though globally you can find non-binary people throughout history. Look, in this bubble, all people are welcome. Well, sorry, let me rephrase. All non-bigots are welcomed. But like, you know, in this bubble here, we acknowledge the trans experience as more than just the binary. But for a lot of people, you know what I mean? There's a hierarchy to who's the real trans person and who isn't. You know?
Cox could not be a successful actor and also not a trailblazer at the time at which she came onto the scene. These things went hand in hand, right? Now, there's a difference between how you personally feel about someone's political, like how they factor into politics, and how they actually politically practice, right? Someone who is in a situation where they are so rare, where they are so uncommon that they're a trailblazer by virtue of existing, maybe representation for trans people, and that may be seen from your vantage point as left-leaning, as liberal, because of course in some ways it is, right? But the reality of it is, as an individual, Laverne Cox can still hold a lot of the classic positions that a straight woman would hold.
Yep.
And the only reason why.
And that's the thing that I think people are missing is that maybe maybe this isn't what Kat is saying, so I'll just speak for myself. Sometimes I think we romanticize minority people who are liberal or progressive as also being queer or deconstructed. I think that's what she's saying. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm mishearing. But Laverne is still just a woman who's into men. She's still just a straight girl. And like straight girls got problems. Okay, straight women are suffering in this economy of love. And I, as a person who's known she wasn't straight since she was a very young child, don't have this problem. I do not have this problem. This is not my problem. So I think the straights are suffering and the binary straights are suffering. The binary, the man, women, dating opposite genders are suffering. And I think because they're suffering and the rest of us are so queer and deconstructed that we're sitting here like, why the fuck what are you doing? Because we aren't constrained in the same ways. And I know I've been called out even in this own chat, like, hey, Brittany, I think your pansexuality is showing. Okay, I get it, girl. But also, I want straight people to be liberated. So when you're ready, this doesn't have to be your construct. I'm not saying you don't have to be straight, and I'm not saying you don't have to be, do you know what I mean? But is this the limitation of your straight binary life? Is this it for you? Because I hope not. And I don't think so. But I hope not.
A lot of you guys are confused by that. is because you don't accept Laverne Cox as a woman, right? If you accepted Laverne Cox as a woman, you would be able to understand how in a patriarchal society where women are often encouraged to engage in these sort of traditional ways of being, when women are raised with a lot of these ideas around relationship, this propaganda around men, you know, et cetera, you will recognize that, you know, it's not that terribly uncommon for women to end up in relationships with conservative men for as long as they are invested in gender roles, right? So when you look at Laverne Cox, right, you think here's someone who, from your vantage point, from your perspective, has traversed gender, right? Has challenged gender. And you think of her as someone who, especially because of her trailblazing, should always be politically activated. And let's just be clear, Laverne Cox is very politically activated, right? But Laverne Cox is also a straight woman.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And a lot of you guys understand when cis women date conservative men, understanding that patriarchy exists and that, you know, there's...
Hold on. I think there's like a confusion happening maybe in the chat. You said the binary still exists. The middle of the spectrum isn't inherently better. Yeah, that's not how the spectrum works. So I'm not coming for you specifically, but I think our brains mistake things. Okay. There is a spectrum. Binary, gay, straight. Okay? Okay, they exist. Everyone else exists somewhere here. They exist here. Okay, actually, let's do here. Okay? All of it is valid. Right? All of it is fine. It's not about who's better or not better, but your experiences have a more likelihood to trap you than other experiences. So if you're a white straight man, you might have a harder time deconstructing or a need to compared to maybe a brown, queer, disabled, autistic person. But if you're a black or brown, autistic, disabled person, it doesn't mean you will deconstruct. It just means you might be inspired to deconstruct because the world around you will cause you to say, why the fuck am I not fitting in? Like, why the fuck is this not working for me when it works for everybody else? And then you have to go through life figuring out, like, why isn't it working for me when everyone else is telling me it's working for them, right? So then what happens, and this is the problem, is like the queer people and the queer. Okay, guys, when I say queer, I'm meaning something different than when Kat says queer. Because I think Kat could be politically queer, but when she says queer, she's talking about her gender experience. She is a straight woman who likes men, period. When she's talking about queerness, she's talking about attraction to different genders, the way she shows up in the world. She exists in a heterosexual bubble, right? So that's different. When I say queer, I'm also talking about deconstructing the requirement of that being the default and the relationship within that structure. You can be a man and a woman in a heterosexual relationship and still have a queer relationship based off the participants in the relationship. But politically queer, meaning maybe you practice a genderless relationship, but to the outside, you're a heterosexual relationship. But if you're in your relationship, closed doors, still like you're a man and I'm a woman, and because you're a man, you act like this, and because you're a woman, you act like this, then that's further from queer, right? But if you're a straight presenting couple to the public, but at home, you deconstruct gender expectation, it's going to be different. Now, Kat might just be literally straight even in her house. Right? Chat says, is politically queer just another way of saying egalitarian? No. Politically queer in American context would also be talking about the ways that the system targets and punishes queer adjacent people who fall under the LGBTQIA bubble. So the queerness here is directly associated with LGBTQIA. But if you're a trans, so Kat is trans, we can't erase that from the reality. And having a trans experience puts you in that category of LGBTQIA, which means that her straight relationship is straight, it is heterosexual, But the fact that she's having even that part of it as a reality is the intersectionality that brings it into a different construct. It's just the intersectionality here is what's at play, right? Chet says, but Kat is poly and dates men who aren't straight as well. No. Sure, but Kat doesn't identify as queer because to Kat, identifying as queer is to say that she's interested in dating non-men. Right? Yeah, dating men who aren't straight doesn't make you not straight. Exactly. Dating bisexual men doesn't make you gay. It just makes you straight because they're still men. But I would argue that she's in queer dynamics in a sense because she's dating queer people if they are queer. But if they're normie gays, then no one's really queer and everyone's just kind of dating. Right? Yeah, straight dudes dating bi men aren't suddenly queer. Exactly. But I think within the construct of the relationship, a straight guy can engage in queer politics without being queer themselves. So I think Kat engages in queer politics, but isn't queer themselves. Does that kind of make sense? And then the different bubbles versus in my relationship, we have a queer marriage. My marriage is queer. I'm queer. Like we're in a queer relationship. It's different. We've adhered to queer, like I adhere more to queer politics directly, literally, but we're progressive politically. You know what I'm saying? Like even today, I was telling my partner about the idea of dating somebody who isn't who's transphobic doesn't make you an ally. My partner's like, well, obviously. And I was like, right, obviously. Like if you're dating somebody who's transphobic, you're not an ally. So I don't know why these allies get to be like, I'm an ally. Your husband isn't, so neither are you. And that goes with black and brown people. I've heard this from black and brown people my whole life, where they feel like if you're dating a white guy who's racist, then you're dating a racist. And like, you're racist because you're dating the white racist. And I agree with that, you know? Chad said, can cishet people be queer based on politics in your view? They can't be queer themselves, but they can engage in queer politics because politics exists outside of you. You are not politics. If you're new to my channel, my name is Brittany Simon. We do philosophy through pop culture and you exist outside of politics. Okay, you, politics. They are not the same thing. So you can have queer politics and be straight. Because you are not politics. Good question. If you have more, let me know. Chad said, what if you used to be bigoted and reform, but your partner doesn't reform? Divorce. Say, I love you. I wish you the best, but I need to move forward in my life and move forward in healing. You know? All right. Let's finish up this video because I have another one to show you after.
An entire system built up against them, right? But you don't really understand how Laverne Cox would end up in a situation like that, right? You don't really express any understanding for how she would end up in a situation like that. And I'm not trying to say that it's a good idea for her to date conservative men. I'm not. I think that conservative men are really, really good at the courting phase. They're really, really good at making it seem like they are just your ideal.
Oh, wait, pause. Somebody asked me a few days ago in chat, and I just remembered because it has to do with this question. Or how do you feel about reinforcing gender stereotypes in your partners? It's fine as long as you know what you're doing. You know, going to your partner and saying like, oh my God, you look so strong today. Ooh, who's so pretty today? That's just validating your partner in whatever way they feel good being validated. But like, as long as it's healthy, as long as it's not rooted in homophobia, as long as it's not rooted in bigotry, right? Chad says cishet people can be assumed queer, like men being pegged or assumed gay or DL, but this is also a kind of homophobia. Exactly. Straight men who want to be pegged aren't gay. Okay. But reinforcing things in your partners that make them feel loved in that moment is good as long as you've deconstructed, you know, as long as you're not saying because you're a man, you're so strong, but also gender affirming compliments are really important to us. Gender affirming action is really important to us. Gender affirming care, we sometimes think of it as like a singular thing, but our community can engage in gender affirming action. That's why we want to be pronoun correctly. It's why we want to be engaged with correctly. Because gender affirming action really matters. So make sure you compliment your partners, regardless of trans or cis, all people engage in it. I gender affirm my brothers all the time because it makes them feel good. Okay, it's very important to do this as long as you're doing it for healthy and good reasons. and the dilemma is like they have to deconstruct, and that's the confusion is like, because misogyny is a good example. Okay, so Andrew Tate would gender affirm care men by saying like, you're smart and you're capable and you're stronger than women, and that's how you know you're men. That's misogyny, gender affirming action, and that's not good. You don't want to gender affirm compliment by being like, you're smarter than women. That's how you know you're a man. Like Myron Gaines would say, I'm taller than you, I'm smarter than you, I make more money than you because I'm a man. It's like, okay, well, that's not healthy. It still is gender affirming care and action and compliment, but it's not healthy. So we want to move towards a progression of deconstruction and a healthiness. And the problem is they get stuck. So I try to gender affirm in like really healthy ways. And only when I see healthy actions. I try to never affirm people in their toxicity, which is something I've had to learn over the years because I definitely have been very bad at it in the past.
Dude that you've been socialized to admire, of course, in a capitalistic patriarchal society where, of course, you are encouraged to fall for men's romance in order to get you to lower your boundaries, right? But that's the thing. You see this with cishet women who date conservative men. They go on, they get into these relationships with these conservative men. The moment that man gets her pregnant, things change. Mm-hmm. Right? A lot of times, conservative men over time are quite abusive. The reason I made my video is just to explain how you arrive there. Because when you're expecting for men to pursue you a certain way.
Hold on. Chat says, is gender affirming for cis men not also a way of affirming that masculinity should be distinct from femininity? Is gender abolition, guys help me, important for self-actualization? It depends on where you're going and your deconstruction journey. But I think it's important that you, masculinity and femininity are distinct from each other, but they also exist in all of us. Abolition. Thanks, chat. Okay, so I think depending on where you want to end your deconstruction journey, like I feel like I'll never end mine, but the difference here is that there's never an end to self-actualization. There's never an end to introspection. There's never an end to knowing yourself because you're always changing and growing, right? Abolition. You guys are so helpful. Thank you. So I don't think it, okay, first, all of us do not require the same tools to go on our introspection journey. Every single one of us needs different tools to figure out a deeper and better relationship with ourselves. So I don't make prescriptions for a reason because I think prescriptions are in many ways wrong because you're claiming objectivity that I don't believe exists. So I think you need to decide what tools you need to have a deeper relationship with self, right? But I think all men, all women, all genders, all non-binary people exist within the feminine and masculine. It's just a matter of acknowledging that and having a healthy relationship with it, you know? Yeah, something like that.
Men to approach you a certain way, and that happens to map really well with the way that a lot of conservative men approach these relationships because they also believe in gender roles, right?
And by the way, people who believe in gender roles, in my mind, when people say that, they're not saying, oh, they want to play into them for fun. It's people who believe in them, like they are a fact or necessary or important or should be, i.e. men should never let their wives drive the car because they're men. That's a belief inherent to this idea because you were born a man, you should drive cars. Instead of actually having the conversation, which is to say, oh, I'm choosing to engage in these particular dynamics because of the person I am and not the gender that I am. So I don't really believe any of us are born male or female and therefore must act a particular way, because I also don't think many of us are born one of the two. I think science will continue to show that male and female is too reductive for the reality of our biological experience. And I think in the future, it might not even matter as much, right? And chat says, what are we going to do without cars and men? Ethan, I know you got that Rolls Royce with Trisha Paytas. The frenemy days. If only we could go back to being frenemies. But now we can't. And now her kid's named Aquaman, so who knows? Maybe in the end, we're all just going to drown under the weight of our bigotry. Man!
It's going to, it makes sense when you think about it. It makes sense why two people who are very invested in gender roles would meet each other, date each other, and have an interest and desire for each other, right? And so it's not an excuse, right? And I
also, wait, Discord just inspired me to think about this. Also, listen, when we could talk about like our dating habits and what we're attracted to, so much of it is fueled and inspired and brainwashed through capitalism. If you really loved your woman, you'll buy her jewelry. Nothing says better than K. What was that jewelry shop? Nothing. What was the jingle? There was a jingle on the radio you would hear growing up, like about jewelry, about flowers, about money. Like if you like those things, you like those things, right? But if you're forcing yourself to like those things because you think you have to show you're in love, you're just a puppet for capitalism, bro. You know? Oh, every kiss begins with K. Thank you. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. See, branding. The branding, bro. And I'm not saying you're wrong for buying those things. I'm saying, do you know why you're doing it? Also, shout out to like Gen Z and millennials who like are not very into diamonds. Love that. You know, I do love that. I feel like I missed a comment. Chat said, are there people that genuinely believe in gender roles and live by them? From what I see, most people that advocate for gender roles, it usually ends up being a fantasy and they don't actually practice it. Yeah, I don't think it's ever perfect. I think you're right that it's never like actually perfect because I think real life happens. But I think people try. I would say, my mom would say that. My mom would say, your father's the head of the household. I was like, for the head of the household, he's kind of a bottom. I was like, listen, you keep saying he's the head of the household, but I feel like one, that's stupid because that says like like he can't make mistakes. And two, you get a say. So why are you acting like that? Why do you put up this facade? You know what I mean? Why do you keep putting up this facade that like dad's the head of the household? Okay, dad, relax. You know, I just feel like my whole culture, I feel like women are so opinionated and talkative. I feel like we're My Big Fat Greek Wedding where we let the men think they're in charge, you know, like they're the head and we're the neck. But ultimately, we're supposed to be a team, dummies. And then there are things that the men end up making bad decisions for the women. And I hate that shit. Okay, I do think that's bullshit. When I do see the women let men make stupid decisions because they're men, I'm going to slap you. What a useless construct, okay? That's why I say we do it. But ultimately, and I think I did benefit from seeing my parents' marriage, ultimately, you do things as a team. You buy things as a team. You go on vacation as a team. You socialize as a team. Like, and I don't mean having friends as a team. I just mean like the way you show up in the world. And that's the marriage I have with my partner. We do everything as a team. Okay? We are a team and we do it by the team. It's just we don't ever advocate for gender roles. My parents play the game. Oh, yes, I'm the man, so I'll do this. Girl, please don't make me scream. Okay? Because ultimately it's just silly. But in my marriage, we don't even talk like that. It doesn't even come up, you know? So yeah, I think you're right. I think people talk a big game. I think it rarely shows up, and when it does, it's really toxic. Actually, I'll give you an example. I knew a Christian lady who couldn't divorce her husband because she felt like she was Christian and good women don't do that. But he would make her do like these, she was like 70 and telling me this, these humiliation kinks where like he would like touch her in the elevator, or like say like, you're mine, I can do what I want. Or he would like you weaponize incompetence to the T, but then say, I'm the man. Like when I look at her and she says like, I want to divorce him, but I'm Christian, I just think, fuck your Christianity, bro. If your religion is keeping you in an abusive relationship, dump the man and the religion, you know? And that's the dilemma I have when these people who are adhering to these gender roles end up just being in abusive relationships. That's the problem. It's like if your man is saying you're the woman, you can't go out, you can't have friends, you can't take a vacation, I need you at home, I need you helping me, I need you, then like that's just emotional abuse disguised as gender roles. But gender roles are bullshit. They're constructs we made up. So if they're not working for your marriage, change them. You know?
I don't think that any of us have the responsibility or ability to excuse, accept, whatever relationships for Laverne Cox, right? I think that Laverne Cox is going to date who she wants to date, and we really don't have any say on that.
And we shouldn't.
What-
I want no say in who Laverne Cox dates. I want to make that abundantly clear. It is not our business who she dates. It is not, when I say it's not our business, I mean it's not for us to lynch her in the streets, because I don't want to lynch anyone. That was actually inappropriate language given the context. I'm sorry. But like, we aren't the mob. I don't want to be the mob. But it is our right to stop engaging with her content. I want nothing but safety for Laverne. I want nothing but safety for people. Okay? That's what I want. How do I live in a world where Laverne gets to be safe? Sometimes that means not engaging with her content, but I certainly wouldn't want to harass her. Please don't go to her comment sections and bother her, right? Like, leave these people alone. But maybe I won't be stoked to like share her content or brag about how good she is, because maybe I'm like, hey, I'm looking for a specific standard, right? I want a certain standard. And that standard is going to be harder and harder to find, because we are, like Kat is saying, human beings on a planet, and we're fucked up. And we won't even live up to that standard. Just now, look at my language. I could have, like, maybe that was an appropriate way to say that, even though I could have used it in another sentence. But maybe if I had paused for a second and thought about it, I would have used a different example. But it's dangerous because our language, it comes from somewhere, right? So like, we're going to be imperfect people. But the point is that that's why I say I'm giving myself until 40 to get better. So I will never ask for perfection, but I will demand of public figures to get better. And if they don't, I'm going to grow out of them. I just feel like maybe it's time to grow out of Laverne. And that's okay. But if she keeps growing, I'm back on it. I grew out of like so many political commentators for this reason. It's like, yeah, I liked you, but I'm done watching you. And that's why I say, even for my content, you guys, it's okay to grow out of my content. It's okay to grow with my content. It's okay to come in on occasion. There is nothing wrong with saying, thank you for making this space for me, but I'm ready to leave it. I fucking love that energy. I love when people stop coming around and eventually you realize like, oh, this space isn't for them. Not that I don't want you in my space forever, but that if it's not conducive with your joy, then I certainly want you to leave. You know?
What I'm trying to do is point out to some of you that your confusion around this has a lot to do with you
No. Hold on. Chet says, but Brittany, when you say that you compliment your brothers based on gender roles because you want to be nice, isn't it ultimately tied to reaffirming gender roles? There's nothing wrong with gender roles. Pause. There's nothing wrong with adhering to action to reaffirm your gender. There's something wrong with assuming because you're gender, you must fulfill a role. Focus. Lock in. Gender is your personal relationship with self. Society doesn't get to dictate how to perform gender. You get to decide how you want to be reaffirmed in your gender. And because we love our family and friends, we reaffirm them in that gender as long as it's healthy. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be affirmed in your gender. Does that make sense? So gender isn't a problem. Nothing wrong with saying, oh, this makes me feel good as a XYZ. Chet says, wait, isn't gender isn't gender roles a construct of patriarchy and white supremacy? Gender roles in that context, yes. Gender as a role, no. Because gender is a relationship with self. Like, okay. Everything gets down to why you're doing it. It's like saying, I'm not going to get married. Marriage is a part of the patriarchy. Not anymore. Not always. Not everywhere. Sometimes marriage is just good for business. Sometimes marriage is just a thing you do because it's a part of your religion, right? Like, deconstructing the thing means that the thing isn't what the assignment is. When you deconstruct a construct, you're saying that is limited and I want to see the options, right? You're saying, hey, you keep saying as a man, I have to be this way. And I'm saying there's no one way to be a man. But the way you feel most like a man, I want to reaffirm that as long as it's healthy. You know, for some men, they want to be reaffirmed in how pretty they are. And in other men, they want to be reaffirmed in how rugged they are. And as long as it's healthy, I'm happy to reaffirm it. You know, but it's based off the individual. The issue with gender roles as a societal prescription is we're saying as a X, you must be X. And that's the problem. You know? That's all I'm trying to deconstruct. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, we're almost out of this cat video, and then I have one more to show you.
Understanding trans women as inherently politicized and inherently queer. It seems like a lot of you understand Laverne Cox as a queer man more than you do a queer woman, right?
I could see that from some of the criticisms I saw from people about Laverne.
And I just wanted to make that point because there really is a disconnect, right, between the reality of being a trans woman dating and the way that a lot of people talk about it. The way a lot of people talk about it, you would envision all of these bisexual men would be super eager to date trans women. As I said in my video, that has not been.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to draw you a paint picture. So there's two ways to think of gender roles, okay? Bubbles, okay? There's the gender roles of your society. There's the gender roles of your world, and then there's the gender roles of your relationship, and then there's the gender roles of your relationship with self. Okay? If you take it into consideration, you take it into consideration. Some of these things play into each other, but sometimes they're also separate from each other. Okay? So there's gender roles in terms of society seeing you and expecting a behavior, and you in your marriage expecting a behavior, and you within yourself expecting a behavior, right? You said, I think the term gender role is the idea that men and women have inherent roles to play in society. I guess if we're saying that it doesn't have to be that way, just whatever we define it as, because everything is a construct at the end of the day, that seems problematic to me. Constructs don't negate things from being real. A construct is a relationship with. Your relationship with is valid, but can be transformed through deconstruction / introspection to have a different relationship and perception with said thing, right? Chad says, how can you tell something is socialized versus when it's self? Deconstruction. Introspection. Deconstruction, guys, means to pull it apart so you can observe it in detail and put it back together. Introspection is your relationship with self. How do I feel this way? What do I think of myself? Extrospection is how do I feel about myself in relation to everything outside of myself, right? How do I relate to me being a person? How does Brittany, who shows up on stream, differ from the Brittany that exists when the computer is turned off, right? Yeah. So that's your job. That's the hard part is, okay, is this something I like or is this something people told me to like? Like when I was younger, I used to say I hated pink because I wanted to be a pick-me and I wanted to be more like a boy because I identified more like a boy. So I would say, I hate pink. Pink is stupid. And that was a part of socialization because society told me girls like pink. And if you're high femme, you like pink. And I said, well, I don't want to be a girl. I want to be a boy. So I hate pink. And then I got older and I was like, actually, I kind of like pink, bro. I kind of like that pink hue. And now my branding is pink and my thumbnails are pink and my shit is pink, you know, because I actually do like pink and I can like pink and be a boy. So I never needed to hate pink. I can be pink and be a girl. I can love pink and be a masculine girl. I can be pink and be a fucking butch lesbian. I just didn't know how to do that when I was 10 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15, 16. I just didn't know how to do it until I could do it. And that took years of deconstruction, figuring it out, doing the work. It takes time. I mean, even my own self, we just did this amazing gender stream on Monday for members. And like, I'm having a deconstruction relationship with my own gender, right? Like I'm having that relationship with gender and, you know, Chad, I saw your correction that you made. Don't worry about it. I saw it. Brittany, non-problematic. I think I saw what you were saying. Everything is constructed. It seems non-problematic. Oh, it seems non-problematic, not problematic. Got it. But like, it's taken me years to even identify as pansexual, let alone, because I was so sure I was bisexual within the binary, men, women. And now I'm like, what the fuck? I'm obviously pansexual. I was pansexual when I thought I was bisexual. I was just confused. You know?
In what I've experienced. I've not experienced straight men being super, bisexual men rather, being super eager to date me. But when I was living in Orange County, especially.
Also, Kat and I both grew up in Orange County. I grew up in Orange County too. Republican. I grew up in Orange County till I was 15. Then my parents moved to Riverside County, very conservative. So I only grown up in Southern California. I've only grown up around conservatives. And my parents were conservatives in Orange County till we were 15, like I said, till I was 15. Then we moved to the country and still conservative, right? My bestie who I lived next door to, she was the liberal. So there'd be like conservatives and the liberals. And that was, so we're from the same part of California. So I understand where Kat grew up. But the only difference between me and Kat is I never dated a conservative because I always knew I wasn't one in my heart, even though I thought I was out loud. That's the only difference is I didn't date. I also dated later in life. I also lost my virginity at 22 to a bunch of fucking liberals hanging out in like liberal town, still in Orange County, by the way. I was fucking around Orange County, but they were like liberals. They weren't like, we weren't, you know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where it was just different. Even if some of them were conservatives, I never knew because it didn't seem that way at the time. I also think my parents always raised me never to settle. My parents always raised me to say it's better to be single than be partnered with the wrong person. So I think all of my siblings and I are pretty comfortable being single. And the ones who didn't and weren't, they've gone to therapy. They've worked on it. They've figured it out. And if they haven't, then you haven't. But my siblings who are single now, they don't worry about it too much. And if they do, they know that they're working on it, right? I have 9 siblings. If you're new to my channel, there's 10 of us in my family. So we all have very different upbringings, lifestyles, relationships with my parents. Like we're all very different. But I think most of my siblings, I would say, are pretty fucking okay being single because they're looking for the right person. So when people say like, oh, the dating pool isn't big here. Okay. I mean, I met my partner, my partner's in Europe, right? Like I live in Europe now. I live in Croatia now, right? I don't even live in America because my partner and I met on the internet. They lived in a different country and I moved. I was like, bye Trump's America, bitch. And I left. So for me, there is no boundaries of where my partner could be on the planet. My many partners, by the way, for some people, they're not willing to date outside of their town. Couldn't be me, girl. Couldn't be me. I am more than happy to move. I'm more than happy to relocate. I'm more than happy to do other things. Right? Like, but not everyone wants to do that. But that's why people settle. And then they get divorced at 50. No, thank you.
I had a lot of conservative men approach me respectfully.
Wait, I'm going to rewind that and listen to that. Why is it so hard for us to find that kind of companionship? Because nobody knows their values and nobody's actually ready to do it. Remember that my partner and I had to meet when we did, because if we had met any time before that, we wouldn't have been compatible. Remember that we both had jobs, our own places, and enough money to fly back and forth to see each other during courting. Please remember that we were older. We're in our 30s. We had the money and resources and support of our families to fly back and forth to meet each other. Please remember that. I think our whole courting process from beginning to end, we probably spent like $20K or something. Dating, getting married, meeting each other, flying, paying for Airbnbs. Like it was not cheap. But that's why I believe in being a responsible adult by my own standards. Standards are different. They're subjective. It's why I had a requirement of my partner living on their own. It's why I had a requirement of my partner being able to work. It's why I had a requirement. You know what I'm saying? Like my high compatibility partner was somebody who lived on their own, was somebody who had a job, was somebody, you know what I'm saying? But it cost thousands of dollars. Every plane ticket was $1,000. Every Airbnb rental was anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. You know what I mean? So, you have to decide what's going to work for your lifestyle and for you. You don't have to do it my way. I'm just letting you know that, like, that's what I mean by high compatibility too. It's going to match up. It's going to make sense. You guys are going to agree on the values of things. Right? How long was the courting? We courted for 6 months, then got engaged, and then got married after a year. And our second wedding anniversary is in about a month. Yeah. So, yeah. So again, for us, it's not that you need the money. It's just that our life needed the money. We dug into our savings. We both had a savings and we dug into our savings to court each other, to marry, because we weren't relying on our parents. Now, our parents were very nice and they gave us like little wedding gifts, like, you know, that was sweet, but like, we weren't depending on them because we're adults. Our families, you know, I flew to Croatia to meet his parents, which was really important. He flew to meet my brothers, which was really important. But we ultimately are the ones making this decision. We ultimately, thank you for the congratulations, guys. We ultimately are the adults who are paying for our life. You know, we're ultimately the ones responsible for our life, right? Chet says, to be honest, I don't know what courting actually means differently than prolonged flirting and learning about each other. Courting, for the way we did it, was intentional dating. The first date was 8 hours long, and we went over finances, political views, our relationships, medical problems, anything that could be a red flag in dating. We did not want to live together unless we were engaged, and we were not interested in moving forward in the relationship if we were not able to get through the first like 4 or 5 dates. So basically, if the first date went well, we'd keep going. But if the first date went poorly, we wouldn't have a second date. I was only interested in serious dating because I knew I was looking for my high compatibility partner. There's many of them out there, but this is the first one I ran into. And best decision we ever made. We're very happy. And I want that for everybody. I want you to be so happy in your marriage. You feel like it's the best decision you ever made, and you are so fucking happy. We do not fight. It is not tense. I have dated with partners, lived with partners, and I can tell you right now, I have officially been with my partner basically as long as like I've been with other partners, and other partners were so toxic and so bad. And people might say, well, you've only been with them 2 years. How do you know it's healthy? Because I knew the other ones weren't 2 seconds in. But I'm also in my 30s. Okay. We were older. I need to preface this. I could never have done this in my 20s. I had to date a lot of shitty people in my 20s. I moved in with people in my 20s. You know? Chad says, I cannot imagine a neurotypical person accepting this kind of dating. Sounds healthy, but so outside the norm. I mean, we are both neurodivergent. So that's probably why it worked for us really well. Right? Yeah. We are both neurodivergent. Like I knew I wasn't going to end up with a neurotypical, like realistically. Right? Maybe neurotypicals can do it, but we're both neurodivergent. So that's also a part of the high compatibility. Sometimes I look at my partner and I think, wow, if it wasn't neurodivergent, it never would have been, because like we're so compassionate to each other's disability aspects of our neurodivergency, because it is a disability. We're so compassionate and so patient. We're so responsible. We're so loving. Like all of it is compassion and love for the consciousness, this person, who they are. I love this person. That's not in typical society. Typical society is, how can you get my rocks off? Are your tits big enough? Is your dick big enough? Do you have enough money in your account? Like, this isn't love. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't love. And so, yeah, for us, like, even in conversations, like, I don't know. I don't think of it as, when I was younger, I just had when I was younger, I thought I understood what companionship was, and I just didn't. And I learned by thinking about my values. You know, what are my values? And that's because if you say, what are my values? Example, if I have a friend who says cheating is unethical, but you're willing to be the other woman or the other man, like, obviously you don't have values. If you say, like, I would never cheat on my partner, but I've cheated in the past, but I could understand why my partner cheated, or you make excuses for bad behavior. It's like, okay, values. In my 20s, I didn't really know my values. It was really hard for me to figure out, like, what are my actual values? You know, what were my actual values? Okay, we're almost done. We keep pausing this video. We're almost there.
Treat me well, take me out, and do all the things that I expected in a relationship, right? Take me out and do all the things that a lot of conservative men approach me respectfully. Treat me well, take me out, and do all the things that I expected in a relationship, right? And this isn't to say that those men are actually good. This isn't to say that those men are actually people you should be partnering with. It is, however, to say that there's a reason why these things end up in that position.
Because it's tempting. It's tempting to say, this is the nicest guy who's treated me the nicest. I'll make excuses for everything else that's wrong with him because at least he's treating me nicer than the last person I was with. It's when you get out of a toxic relationship and you go into another one, but it's better than the last one. So you figure this is better.
And part of why I talk about this stuff is so that people are aware of these things so they kind of avoid it, right? It makes sense for you as a trans woman to resonate with the way that a heterosexual man would approach you, especially when your other options are not looking like that, right? But
And look, chat says, I told my friend to talk about, what did you say? Taxes and values on the first and second date. They looked at me like I was crazy, at least within 5 dates. But see, in neurotypical straight communities and culture, they teach you to lie until the person likes you and then you reveal. And that's the manipulation. But they don't even know that it's fucked up because they think everyone's doing it. And I realized, like, hey, I don't want to do that. Like, please don't make me do that. This is such a horrible feeling. This is the worst feeling in the world. So my first date question that I asked was, okay, what is a thing about you that it could be a red flag to people? So mine is, I'm queer, I'm progressive, I'm a sex worker. And if we have kids that are trans, we're going to reaffirm them. Those are usually the questions that are deal breakers for so many people that I'm like, if that's a deal breaker for you, you can fuck off. And my partner passed with flying colors. And so I was like, wait, really? Like, we had been talking, right? We had been chatting, but our first video date, right, was 2 weeks into us chatting. And we had a good feeling about each other. But the first date was really like, I'm serious, guys, like 8 hours with pee breaks and food breaks. And we were like chatting. We were like, how do you feel about this? Very serious. How much money is in your savings? How do you feel about income? What do you want your career to be? How do you feel about kids? And we were honest. What medical problems do you have that could be like a deal breaker for other people, right? Because we were serious. We were ready. We didn't want to waste any time. And also we knew that this could be something. We also had a feeling it could be something. We knew. I don't know how we knew. I think the data was just there. After 30,000 exchange messages, I think we just had a feeling. Because, I've gone on enough dates. And also, you don't have to date anybody to know, but you know yourself. You just know when you're with somebody, right? I think it's when you know yourself, it's easier to do these things. But I didn't know myself in my 20s, Chess says, is finances pertinent to values, though? Abso-fucking-lutely, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. It is, because I've known so many people who, okay, we share everything. We don't lie to each other or deceive people. If I came home and my partner's like, hey, I just spent $10,000 of our money on something, I'd be like, well, that was a betrayal. You just deceived me. You went behind my back. You did something without talking to me. You made a huge purchase of our savings into something. Like, yeah, I need to know if you're responsible with money. Are you the kind of person that's going to spend your money on yourself and not your kids? Are you the kind of person that's going to neglect the people are you the kind of person that's going to go behind my back and have 10 credit cards I don't know about? Yeah. Finances, super fucking important. Like, what's your relationship with money? What do you think money is for? What if they're super capitalists that's scamming people so they can make money? Yeah, I need to know that because I don't want to be with that. Finances are very, very important. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen whose partner spent $50,000, right? Right? And it's gone. Chet says, that wasn't what I was asking. Like, you wouldn't mind if they're making a lot of money or just an average income, not like deception and stuff. Oh, like my partner doesn't currently work, right? I don't care if they have a job. I don't care if my partner works. I care that the team is winning, right? So but I needed my partner when I met them to have had a job and live on their own because I wasn't willing to date somebody who lived with their parents, right? Like, I am not willing to date somebody that isn't Brittany isn't. This is nothing to do with your values. I didn't want to be with somebody that wasn't independent and didn't know how to take care of themselves because I had dated people who didn't know how to do that before. And it made them bad people. They were kind of immoral. Like the people I was dating in the past who couldn't take care of themselves were leeches on the community. They were damaging. They were stealing from people, or not paying taxes. Or when I was like, oh, I need somebody that's like responsible. I need somebody who like does things correctly in a way that makes sense, you know? So it's not how much money you're making, it's how you're making your money and why you're not making your money in your relationship with money. But that's for Brittany. Like for a lot of people, they don't mind dating somebody who lives with their parents. Yeah, not for me, but like you do you. You decide if it works for you. You know? Yeah. Wait, what is this? Chess says, Brittany, can you please cover how everyone is reacting to the T app? What's the T app? Well, at the same time, not having the same energy for it being done against women in the Telegram groups. The T app? What is that? I don't know what that is. You guys are going to have to tell me. Okay, almost done.
Long term, it's not a great idea to share your body with someone who doesn't want to politically defend it. And what I found
Listen to that again.
To share your body with someone who doesn't want to politically defend it.
And this goes for birth control, abortion rights, and anything else. Kind of crazy to let a man inside your body when he's not willing to protect it or vote for its agency.
And what I found from conservative men, like I said in many videos, is they have a very underdeveloped politic. And that underdeveloped politic will mean that they are going to vote for things that harm you without understanding that they're harming you. And that ultimately is going to be dangerous down the line. So, you know, and I mean interpersonally, not just, you know, in terms of what's happening politically. So yeah, don't date conservative men. But I'm trying to explain why it happens.
Yeah, I love this. I think Kat's making some great fucking points. Okay. Chat says the T app is an app where women share things about the men they're dating. Is it like, hey, are we dating the same guy app? Is it like, oh, is this guy like on a date? Like, I'm dating this guy. Are you dating this guy? Okay, so let's talk about this because I think people are deeply confused about something, and I need to make it abundantly clear. We are aware, yes, that we are not all dating the same people. So when T.S. Madison says all men cheat, right? All men, DL, men have probably been with trans women. Like, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being a trans woman, but we know we're not all dating the same people, right? So minus the trans woman thing, because we don't care about that, because we're inclusive here. You know, when you say like all men cheat, though, I hate to say this, but like we're not dating the same people. And I'm so sorry that's your experience, but like not everyone's having that experience. To be fair, in order to date a man who isn't going to cheat on you, you would have to date a man with, say with me, values. And you know what I mean? Now, that's not to say that you are responsible for your partner cheating on you, but it's to say that you would have a specific standard to hold them to, and it includes leaving if they do. You know, saying that, you know, you have to settle for a man who cheats. Like Myron says this all the time. Women have to learn that men need to have other people to have sex with. No. Right? Now, chat says, my understanding it's one of those Facebook groups that warn women about red flags about men. I'm assuming it's just deeply problematic red flags, not just petty things. Let me just say this. If you need to be on the app, there's more in your life going wrong than you could even imagine. If you need to be on an app asking if people are dating my guy, girls, break up, don't even ask. If you need to ask, things are fucked. Now, let me tell you this. Don't self-sabotage and say, well, I just want to prove that my guy is good, so I'm not even going to check. No. I'll give you an example. What was the Love is Blind character that was accusing the girl of cheating? Oh, it was Ultimatum. Do you remember the Ultimatum guy who was accusing the girl of cheating because she took her phone into the bathroom? The big meme in my household is like, are you going to the bathroom? Are you taking your phone? And I'm like, not only am I taking my phone, I'm taking the tablet too. Which, by the way, I do not take the tablet in there. Take my phone though. You know, the joke is like, I'm taking my phone. And like, so the big joke in our relationship is because one, we're both neurodivergent and like locked to our phones. And two, all the electronics in the house are shared. But we have our designated computers. But like, if I'm on my partner's computer, they're not going to be like, why are you on my computer? Blah, 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 blah. They're just going to be like, why are you on my computer? Is yours broken? You know what I mean? I open my, if my partner needs a phone or my phone is hanging around, like we just leave our phones everywhere. If we need to go into our phones, we will. But it's the fact that you feel like, right? It's the fact that you feel like I'm not going to go into my man's phone because I know he's not cheating. Well, that's also weird to me. Just like, it's just a phone in the house. You ever had a family phone growing up? It's a family, it's my phone, but it's our phone. Like it's our phones, but they're just like, everything is shared. So acting suspicious, but then denying yourself, like, don't do that. If you have an inkling, if you have an intuition saying something is wrong in your relationship, believe it. Right? And then look into it. But also, if you're in a healthy relationship, then you know what I mean? Like, I never look at my partner suspiciously. I never look at them suspiciously. I never think about it because I never get the inkling. I never get it. You know that spidey sense that comes in? It never comes in. With everybody else I dated, with friends, family, I'm like, oh, spidey sense. Even when I'm talking to family, I'm like, you lying. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, you're lying, bro. You're lying. Like, I can tell when my little brothers are lying. I'm like, you're lying. I never get that with my partner. But I've gotten it with other partners. You know, I've gotten it with other partners. You know? So that's the thing, right? The thing is, like, we live and learn. It is what it is. What are you going to do? Right? Does that answer your question about the T app? I just feel like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of those videos. I have a podcast coming out about this. I'm not a big fan of those videos that are like, hunt this person down, find out where they are. I think they're cheating on their wife. Like, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the mob mentality, though I can see a reason why these things can be life-saving for people. I also think it's really creepy. I never engage. Like, I don't engage with that mentality. I'm not that person. I'm not the person that's interested in, like, looking at people's Facebook accounts to figure out if they're cheating on their wife. Like, I don't care. It's not my business. But also, if it's put in front of me, that's different. Because I feel like it can be dangerous to everybody involved in ways we don't think about. So it's like, we have to think about these things. Like, who do we want to be in culture? You know, like the Mormon wives, like the Mormon wives show I review. Like, do you want to be these girls? You know, do you want to be these girls? Is that who you want to be? Do you know what I'm saying? And this goes for anything that a person is doing. It's because there's a difference between genuinely wanting to help people and getting your rocks off, outing people for their business. And you know, there are people who get their rocks off doing it. And I'm saying, you as the person, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? If it's for a really good reason, you'll do the right thing. Do you get what I'm saying? If you are mob mentality, getting your rocks off, like, there are whole TikToks dedicating to, like, ruining people's lives. Like, this can't be good. Okay, that can't be good. But that's different than someone genuinely being like, hey, girl, I was on an airplane. I heard this guy talking. If your name is Brittany in San Francisco and your guy's name is David, he's cheating on you. Like, that's one thing. That's different than someone being like, guys, I found this guy's face and I found his picture on Facebook and I looked into it. He went to high school and blah, blah, blah. And he actually has had 7 girlfriends. Like, what are you doing? That is totally different. So yes, be a good neighbor, warn people, right? Warn people, but don't go out here out of your way trying to be the weirdest, craziest stalker ever just to get some tea on some strangers you don't know. You know? Okay, one last video. I thought this was interesting. I think her volume might be a little bit low, but this is about friendship, and I think this is so important.
Romantic relationship with a MAGA Republican. That video of Laverne Cox talking about having been in a romantic relationship with a MAGA Republican despite her being a Black trans woman brought back actual war flashbacks to college when I was friends with this girl whose personality was just that, hooking up with people who hated her guts but loved being in her guts. And she was a dark-skinned Black girl just like me. I met her at a Black Student Union club meeting at the PWI that we both attended. And you know, I found it really strange that every single member, basically every member of Black Student Union, not just the Black people, because we had white people, Latinos, Native Americans, Middle Eastern people, everyone was a part of the club. And of all of these people, this beautiful array of people, so diverse, not a single person liked this girl. Not a single person wanted to be this girl's friend. Me being the dumbass bitch that I am, I'm like, you know what? I think she needs a friend. I think you guys are being too cliquey and mean. I'm gonna befriend her. And over the course of like the year and a half that we were friends, I learned that they all had very good reasons to not befriend her. Just to add some context, she was raised in Utah by her adoptive parents who were very conservative, very Mormon, and very racist. Which, if you're from Utah, all of that makes perfect sense. Because a lot of people are like, well, if they're racist, why would they choose to adopt a black child? But anyways, she, she was kind of brainwashed into sharing many of their sentiments about black people. Like, literally, when we started getting closer, she told her parents that we were friends, and she showed them my Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and they were like, oh, we don't want you hanging out with black people. Mind you, she's black. But anyways, we got close enough to that she would feel comfortable calling me and telling me about the guys that she would hook up with whenever she would hook up with them. And this one time she calls me and she's just sounding so rejuvenated. And I'm like, girl, who has you riding on this high? I should not have asked. I should have kept my dumbass mouth shut and just been like, okay, good for you. Click. She calls me this one time, decides to tell me, she's like, girl, I hooked up with this guy and he was like a cowboy. And I'm like, cowboy? That's not good. That is not, because when she says that does not just mean that he is someone who works on a farm. That does not mean he's a farmhand. That does not mean he works at a stable. That means something else. So she keeps going. And she's like, as soon as we got into his apartment, like we didn't even make it to his bedroom. We just started hooking up on his couch. And above the couch on the wall was a half Trump flag, half Confederate flag. And I hooked up with him on that couch and I just felt so free. I'm on the phone. I'm like, and all those times where she would look me dead in my face when we were hanging out and she would go, you're my only black friend. You know that, right? Like you're my only black friend. Every single moment where she ever did that just came flashing back to me. I was like, oh shit. Like this is why I was the only black person dumb enough to fall for this. Yeah, obviously we're no longer friends.
Okay. So I thought that was like a cool contrast to the conversation about romance because it happens even in friendship. It happens even in friendship. And I know people say like, oh, I can't believe you're ending a friendship over politics. I'm not ending a friendship over, I've never ended friendships over politics. I never stopped talking to people over politics. I stopped engaging with people over values though. And those values sometimes are expressed through politics. But like, yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. Everyone's on a journey, but it's values. This is a values difference. And I think it shows up in friendship and it shows up otherwise. Now, I believe, and this is the thing that I do, where I do believe I give more, I put in more emotional labor to my inner circle, like friends and people I'm related to that are deeply connected to me as a consciousness than anybody else. So like casual friendships are just friends that I have. Like I ended like a friendship. I had a friendship with this guy for like, I don't even know how many years, like a decade maybe. A loose kind of friendship, like we're content creators. We know each other a long time. He was always really nice. We've been to each other's places, like da-da-da-da. He recently came out as MAGA and I was like, hey bro, it's been good. Good luck. And I know some people are like, I can't believe you would have, but that was it, girl. I don't want to hear it. Don't need an explanation. I'm good. You're not inner circle. You're not my brother. I'm not related to you. I'm not doing this much emotional labor to figure it out. I don't want to have a conversation about like, oh, but like, listen, like, bye. Jess says, don't spit on the mic, Brit. How are you going to get it looped up? Huh? Make it make sense, chat. So, for some people, I'm like, I'm out. Some people, I hear one single comment. I'm like, nope, don't want to have the conversation. Don't want to try to figure out where you're coming from. Don't want to do it. Bye. Bye. Some people, though, I put in the investment. Okay? For some people, I put the investment in, but you get to pick and choose who it is. I pick and choose very carefully who I put the investment into. It's not most people, girls. Okay? It's not most people, let me tell you. I hear one single sentence I don't like, sometimes I'm out. And people are like, wow, people are just willing to break up friendships over like one thing. Well, you know. Okay. Chat said I distanced myself when a girl said, why do people hate Trump so much? Bye. Bye. Nah. You know? Ugh, girl. That's what I'm saying. Like, this Laverne Cox conversation is so important, but people have to understand, like, it's really not just coming out of anywhere. We're exhausted from dealing with people who are willing to romanticize being with bigots in a way that I understand comes from like lived experience and trauma and everything else. But it's okay if we don't want to engage with it, because she is at the end of the day a public figure. That's all. She's not our friend. I'm not related to her. I don't know her. She is at the end of the day a TikToker, an author, actress. Like, at the end of the day, she's a public figure. We don't owe public figures allegiance. And when people say like the way, you know, you turn on people in our community so fast, yeah, we're not in the same communities. We have overlap though. I'll give you an example. Like, I don't know if that is also needs to be said, right? Like, there's so many ways to be gay and trans and brown and, you know, all the ways we engage. Like, not all of us are in the same bubble, even if we have overlap. But sometimes, you know, sometimes we all exist under the LGBTQIA. You can't see the letters, but like, you know, we might all exist under the LGBTQIA, but we're all in different bubbles. So like, let's say Laverne is here and Kat's in here and T.S. Madison's in here. Okay, great. And then maybe we have like, I don't know, Elliot Page in here, because Elliot and Laverne are both actors and actresses in Hollywood. Cool. And then we have like adjacent, let's see, Kat is a YouTuber. So then there's like, let's say there's me, and then this bubble is connected to this bubble and this like, we're all in different bubbles, but we're all overlapping and connecting. Okay. So again, it's not that Laverne is a bad person or not in our community. She's just in she's in this community, but we all exist in our little communities. You know, when people say like the left is eating itself, we're allowed to have factions within factions. Is that the right word? We're allowed to have bubbles within bubbles, guys. You know, look at the thing I just covered with Riley, the trans man. Like, I saw follow-ups to Riley's commentary, and I still believe he is saying not all men. I know he keeps saying he's not, but progressives don't talk the way he's talking. He is not talking like a progressive. So yes, he might be saying something that is true to his lived experience as a trans man. Like Kidology is saying something that's true to her lived experience as a black woman. Like T.S. Madison or Laverne or anybody is saying something, but that has nothing to do with whether or not you align with my progressive values. Do you know what I'm saying? I finally had to block Riley because they were coming up on my feed too much. I wish him the best, truly. But it's giving not all men, whether he's a trans man or not. But I agree that he's going through something, and that's valid. Like Lauren was raped by Andrew Tate. She's a rape victim, and I believe her. That exists. And then also what exists is her bigotry. These are two separate things, and I'm going to meet them differently. I'm going to meet Riley's pain differently, right? And that's what people are forgetting. I empathize with Laverne's lived experience, like in terms of her life and the things she's faced. I also definitely would be like, I don't know what's happening here. You know, what's happening here? So, you know, I just think we should start learning that these things are the same but different, but overlap in different ways. Actually, I wonder if I can play you this clip. It'll probably no, I'll use it in a podcast later. Never mind. Forget what I said. Okay. Chess says, Brittany, do you think that liberals are irredeemable to the point it's not worth doing the emotional labor for what do you think is the appropriate threshold? Who are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, what liberals? Which ones? Who? Strangers? I don't make prescriptions. You do you. I pick and choose which individual person I give any emotional labor to. I don't advocate for a community like we should do this, we should do this. You should be good to people. You should be kind to your neighbors, regardless of who they are, and you should live within your values. You should treat people with dignity. even if they don't treat you with dignity. While understanding that sometimes you'll lose your cool and you'll, call people a bitch. You know what I'm saying? But like, yeah, I'm not, I don't know what it means. Like, should we do the emotional labor for liberals? Who? Do you? You figure it out. You do what you want to do. You know? Chess says, like, what would you do to a friend who is a liberal, like friend or family members or anybody? I don't know, Habibi. It depends on the person. Habibi, listen. I treat everybody as a person. Every single person I am friends with gets treated differently because they're different people. I don't treat anybody the same. Right? So I go to that person and I say, hey, you, consciousness, I see you doing XYZ action. Can we talk about it? Or, hey, you, consciousness, you're an adult and I trust you, but at the same time, like, I don't fuck with this. Hey, you, individual consciousness in the universe, like, I really love you and I'm glad you're in my life. I treat every single person in the world differently. The difference with my job and showing up on the internet is I can't do that. So I have to make generalizations, right? That say, this is how I would treat this group of people, right? But I'm willing to meet strangers. I mean, I'm willing to do emotional labor for my chat sometimes. I don't even know who you are. It's just like, it depends on the mood and where I'm at and what I can offer people. I was willing to do emotional labor for Lauren Southern's whole fucking post earlier because I could empathize and understand their positioning, right? And I can understand her where she was. Like, her story is it's so common, right? And so I could sit there and be really empathetic, but only within that context and within that framework. But otherwise, she's not going to get empathy regarding anything else, right? So you do the emotional labor that works within your values, but don't go above that. Like, help your community, but not at the expense of yourself. Help yourself, but not at the expense of your community. Yeah? Help people, but not at the expense of your sanity. And always help yourself. Always prioritize yourself, but not at the expense of everybody else. That's how I kind of think about it. All right, girls, we did it. That's it for today. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys again on Monday for member streams, Tuesday for everybody else, Sunday, July 27th, professionally taught yoga, 30-minute class on the Discord. Discord is through Patreon. It helps fund the channel. You guys really keep my work possible. Thank you so much for YouTube memberships. I'll have more BoJack out for you this weekend. And then I'll start on Queer Ultimatum next week. July 27th, I also have the Discord 101. We'll be discussing about the different constructs between race and gender and why they are different. If you guys are interested in joining us, great. And then we're also going to take some votes about what series or thing to do next as a community. We usually do events every Sunday on the Discord. So if that's interesting to you, please come join us. Otherwise, thank you for being here. And I will see you guys next time. All right, bye. Like the stream before you go. Thank you. Have a good weekend. Please stay safe. Safe, sane, and consensual, y'all. All right. See you guys then. Bye. Some Elvin in the music. Oh, no. Actually, wait, bros. Yo, I haven't listened to Devin Doe in forever. Do I have it saved? Oh, my God. I hate that they don't even come up naturally. I can't believe the link doesn't just come up. That actually, so upsetting to me. I got you. I got you. I got the link. Let's listen to some Devin Doe on the way out. Shout out to Devin. I haven't listened to Devin's music so long on stream. Oh, hold up. Like the stream before you go.
Stuck in my head, real life I'm in bed. My belly's being fed and I'm okay. I'm just fine, yet all I do is whine. Not to you in my mind, cause I know I don't make sense. I've been nothing but blessed, so why's my life a mess? Please tell me, cause I'm sick of thinking. Yeah, I'm sick of reaching out for the truth and living life as a fool. Trapped in this mind, trying hard to find the pieces to my life to make things clear. What just say? I was too busy calculating what adds up to me. But I know it's not solvable, an impossible puzzle, yet here I am trying to work it. Who's to say if it's worth it or just a waste? A never-ending chase me to the moon. Chase me till I am blue. I'm so blue. Color me see through till I fade away. Finally rest this brain here in this world, mysterious universe, or just a floating rock. We'll never know. It's just our brains. Perception's not the same. It depends on who you ask and what's their name. What's my name? Stuck in my head, in real life I'm in bed. My belly's being fed and I'm okay. I'm just fine, yet all I do is whine. Not to you in my mind, 'cause I know I don't make sense. I've been nothing but blessed, so why's my life a mess? Please tell me why I take things serious. It's insane, a bit delirious, all in vain. After all, life's just a game.